Okay. Good evening, everyone. At this time, I would like to call to order the regular City Council meeting of Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022. It is now 8:02 p.m. If everyone would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. For the record, I would like to have you say that we do have a quorum at this time. Madam City Clerk.
Yes, Mayor, we do have a quorum. In chambers, we have Councilmember Estev, Councilmember Wolfley, and Councilmember Harrison. And virtually on the screen, we have Mayor Pro Tem Boffo and Mayor Adams.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I would ask, are there any agenda additions, deletions, or amendments? Hearing none, we will move to the citizen participation. Madam City Clerk, do we have any citizen participation this evening?
Yes, Mayor, we do have 5 speakers signed up to speak, and I'll call them up. First, we have Corporal Kwok Kam, the president of the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge number 140.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members and
Good evening.
staff. My name is Kwok Kam. I'm the newly appointed Buoy FOP Lodge 140 president. And I also want to introduce myself and also one of my board member. He's the secretary, Christopher Grimshaw. Just want to be happy to be here and give us time to speak to everyone. And looking forward to working with everybody on future issues or any concerns we have with the members and to the police department and this community.
All right. Thank you so very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Mayor, we have Bonita Jones. She's coming up.
Good evening, Ms. Jones.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bonita Jones. I'm a resident here of the city of Bowie. 2 topics. I know my limit is 5 minutes, and we will keep it to that. My first topic is addressing the inoperative vehicles code with the city of Bowie. Times have changed. People's vehicles are being vandalized. Wheels are being taken off of people's cars. So I wish that the city of Bowie would respectively reconsider the 48-hour limit that they've imposed. My HOA has adopted that rule, and I think it's fairly unreasonable in today's time. I think that more time needs to be given to a homeowner to recover from certain acts of vandalism that might have occurred against their car, or whether they're sick or any other reason. So I'm respectfully requesting the city to revisit that. My second topic, and I'm very excited when I've read the newsletter today, it looks like there is a meeting for HOA leaders. I have lots of topics for you this evening to discuss with those HOA leaders when you do have the opportunity. I live in an aging community here, and since that time, this community has been governed by a board of directors and several management companies. To that end, this board of directors has failed to keep current with Maryland law. It's hard for us to get copies of minutes of meetings. It's hard, they're piling on the fees, which is a violation of Maryland HOA Act. They take very little fiduciary oversight of contracts entered into with third parties, such as towing companies. I've recently had a debate with them about the use of my personal identifiable information in electronic communications. The response to that was, we'll stop sending you emails. And then also, there's been some failure to recognize delays in MVA processing rules. So these violations by the board and the management company, you all, have resulted in unnecessary and improper financial and non-financial loss to residents of my community. These individuals who should be serving in a fiduciary capacity to the residents of my community are instead huddling as a group of friends who collectively and selectively decide which of these few and obsolete bylaws they choose to declare. And it's unfair. I'm here tonight to respectfully ask the City of Bowie, which it looks like you're already established in communication with the HOA leaders. I'm asking the City of Bowie perhaps to become a leader or liaison with the county and state governments to significantly enhance oversight of the Homeowners Association. And the document from which I'm speaking this evening, I have copies. I will leave those with you. Imagine living in a community where you purchase a new home and could be immediately penalized by a current provision that is not provided in the homeowner's package at the time of the purchase because all current provisions were not provided to you. Imagine living in a community where the management company has no reference to the current laws posted on its website. Imagine living in a community where the volunteer members of the board have not taken the free training that is offered by the county. Imagine living in a community where illegal acts are taken against residents and those acts are possibly upheld in a court of law, resulting in necessary losses to the residents, such as liens on residents. Imagine living in a community where funds are not set aside for legal representation to protect residents against the board and the management company. Imagine living in a community where residents go to sleep at night and a tow truck company, who is a for-profit entity, is riding through your neighborhood and making decisions about your personal assets for 5 minutes or less. In my case, those decisions were inaccurate. Imagine participating in a board meeting where the management company advises the board to break the law against the residents with regards to fines for architectural violations. Those rules are stated in 11B 117, where the state law specifically puts a limit on the amount of liens that can be placed against an individual property. Imagine having a lawyer who represents that board who does not intervene or stop this from happening. My thoughts for you today is, imagine that things will change. Maybe the city, the county, or the state will require management companies to send letters to all residents in the community regarding relevant laws. This communication can be separately or along with other mailings. Require all boards and management companies responsible for maintaining legally forced documents in the county depository. Require all communities to set aside funds for a lawyer that represents the residents. It was when I spoke up at a meeting about 6 months ago that the residents in my community realized that I had started to research this. I brought forward the Maryland Homeowners Association Act, I brought forward changes in towing laws, and there were people in my community who were researching as I was speaking that realized that our board was actually breaking the law against us because they were not informed. And lastly, which looks like you've already done, I'm so excited, it just seems like it's weird that I'm here. Set up a website with some type of survey that addresses the most common concerns of residents. Perhaps send those results to the board and management company and require responses to these concerns. I will help, but it looks like you're already ahead of me. So I have copies, as I said, for all of, I didn't read, with respect for my 5-minute time limit, I did not read all of the comments that I've made. I certainly hope that you guys will take a few minutes to read this document, and then also perhaps when the meeting is held with the HOA leaders, that the opportunity will be taken to address some of the concerns that I've raised this evening. Thank you all for your time, and can I leave the copies here on this desk?
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time this evening. I appreciate it.
Have a good evening.
Okay. Mayor, next we have Matthew Gallagher.
Good evening. I'm Matthew Gallagher. I'm a citizen here of Bowie. I asked the council and city management to stop selling us brown water immediately. Another citizen wanted to be here, but unfortunately she has to work. She sent me photographs, and I gave it to Ms. Hernandez, who was going to add it into the record. And it's a photo of the color of water that comes to her sink every day, not just when the hydrants are flushed. Phase 1 of the water main program ended ahead of schedule, and yet there was a delay in starting Phase 2. There's been talk of increasing the number of miles of pipe to be repaired, yet where's the RFP? Where are the proposals? And where's the award for the contracts? Why is there a delay? A presentation was made at your last meeting about helping citizens with water filters, yet you delay again. You constantly delay, and you continue to sell us dirty brown water. You place an ice rink and golf course ahead of the health of Bowie residents. Why do you do that? You've held special council meetings about other topics like ice rinks and other sports facilities, yet there's nothing on the city website that shows you've held special meetings providing clean water or water filters for the citizens of Bowie. Why is that? You say this is important, yet all you do is delay. You delay replacing pipes, you delay awarding the work, you delay helping citizens with water filters. This is a problem your predecessors ignored and kicked down the road, and you continue to do the same thing. Your unwillingness to act provides you the same legacy as those previous councils who just didn't care. Your decision to continually delay calls into action the integrity of the council and the city staff. You say the water pass is a test for safety, yet we know the test has been established to protect the city and all other governments from lawsuits, not to give us clean water. Stop selling us dirty brown water. You say the city water is safe, yet at last council meeting and at tonight's council meeting, there are bottles of water at every place for the council and the city staff. If the water's good enough to sell to the citizens, why isn't it good enough for you, the staff, and the council to drink at your meetings? Why are you provided bottled water and we are not? When I spoke at the December meeting, false statements were made to just incriminate me, just to slander me. And we know the reason those were made was just to cover up your failure as our city council. Well, if you need a whipping boy, and that's for me, then I'll take that on. But you need to do your job. You need to provide us clean drinking water. You need to do it now. If you truly care about the citizens of Bowie, you'll stop selling water, dirty brown water. If you truly care, you will fix this problem, and in the meantime, you will approve the water filter rebate program, which is on your agenda tonight. Thank you.
Mayor, next we have Brittany Beasley.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing me the moment to speak. My name is Brittany Beasley. I'm also a resident here in Bowie. Back in 2012, I became a first-time home buyer, and I purchased my home here in Bowie in the M section. I love my neighbors, I love my home, but a red flag, the first red flag in reference to the water should have been when I was greeted by one of my neighbors with a bottle of solution to utilize when I launder my clothing. That would be the first red flag of many regarding the quality of water that my neighbors have been forced to deal with well before I moved into my home. Fast forward 10 years later, my family has now expanded. My husband and I have welcomed 2 beautiful children, and there have been many nights when I'm prepping them for bedtime and running their bath water, only for some nights not to be able to bathe them at all because I'm not comfortable with the brownish yellow tint of water that's spewing into their bathtubs. They have also developed issues with their skin that I can't help but think stems from the water in our home that we've been utilizing since they've been born. I refuse to let my children bathe in the water, let alone drink it. I've frequently purchased bottled water and filters for my family to utilize. I have to clean probably a little bit more often than your average resident just to prevent staining to my toilet, my sinks, and my bathtub in my home. No matter how safe the water has been reported to be, I can't help but think of the long-term implications it can have on one's health. In doing research, I located a report about the quality of local drinking water across the nation to include right here in Bowie. The report indicated that cancer, damage to the brain and nervous system, hormonal disruptions, problems in pregnancy, among other serious health conditions could result from the consumption of the water. No family should have to be concerned about the quality of water that's flowing through their home. While you may not see that many residents here tonight, and I'm sure on previous nights you guys are used to seeing Mr. Gallagher here, but just rest assured that we are here to voice the concerns of our neighbors and that there are other people who are dealing with this issue, and it's an issue that no person, it's a basic right, a basic necessity. No one should have to stand here and plead and beg for clean water to be able to utilize and drink in their homes. So I just hope that before you make decisions on anything else, infrastructure-wise, building new things, that you just make the replacement of these pipes a top priority, and in the interim, at least providing every resident with the appropriate filtration system so we could at least consume water and utilize it to cook and to bathe until the pipes are replaced. So I thank you for your time tonight. Thanks.
And last, Mayor, we have Al.
Hello. It would have been great if everyone would have given her their full attention, and you just had a parent come up here and say she can't bathe her children because of the dirty water, you know. I don't have any written, so I'm going to just speak what I know. I've been living here quite some time, and I'm very unhappy about the discolored water that comes out of our taps. The state of Maryland has received $6 billion in infrastructure money. I heard you guys know that this has been an issue for many years. I'm going to say 12 years. And with confidence, that you know these pipes need to be replaced. This is something that you need to do. We wasted, how much money did we waste on an ice rink that never came to fruition? This is a concern. She just told you she can't bathe her children. You guys need to take this to heart. What happened in Flint, Michigan, I'm not saying we're there. The people complained, their voices were ignored, their concerns were ignored. This needs to be addressed now. I'm not here to get dramatic. I'm here to tell you that discolored water is coming out of the taps. We can't have this. I spent over 20 years in the military. I've been to so many countries. To come home and see discolored water coming out of our taps is not acceptable. It is criminal. It is criminal. We should not be telling you guys that we want clean water, or at least discolored water. You're going to say the water's fine. But when it comes out and it's, yellowish brown, you don't want to drink, you don't want to brush your teeth with that. You know this is an issue, but we don't get any action. The state of Maryland has money. I expect, as this council, that action is to be taken. And you should be knocking on our door saying we're going to install water filtrations, or going and giving everyone a check. Let's get this done. We shouldn't have to come here. And the reason why I'm saying we shouldn't have to come here is because you know this is an issue. You know this is an issue. This is not a new topic. This is a topic that's been around for quite some time. And I hope that you guys listen to your engineers. You know, everybody's saying listen to the science, right? Listen to the science, listen to your engineers. Unless you guys are city planners or engineers, you don't know. You have to listen to your engineers. I spoke with the engineers. You guys have great staff. They know what they're talking about. You need to listen to them. This needs to be attacked as a whole. This piecemeal way that you're handling this is unacceptable. You can't fix this and 8 years get over here. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. They don't even use the water at Bowie High School. They get water trucked in. All right, when you start hearing about people telling you they can't bathe their kids, The elementary schools are having issues. This is a Bowie citywide issue. You need to look at it. We should not be sitting here, standing here before you, saying that we don't want to have discolored water. It's criminal for us to even sit here and have that discussion. Please approve the funds to get at least let's get the water filtration systems started, which is just like a thumbtack on a hole. But let's get this done. I expect, as a tax-paying citizen here, and I've been paying for what? Every time I get those bills, it says water pipes. All of us get the water pipes charged. We need action. We need to hear from you guys with a plan on how this is going to be addressed. So that's all I got. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's the last person, Mayor, signed up to speak.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will now move on to presentations and the swearing in of the Bowie police officers.
For a second. One of my favorite things to do, of course, is to swear in new officers, and I'm very proud to present Officers Frank, Dunkley, and Phillip for your consideration tonight. Two of them are coming from other departments, one Newport News and one MPDC, and one is coming fresh out of the Municipal Academy, and we're expecting great things from them. So on your Mayor, I will give you the honors.
Okay, thank you so very much. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read a little bit about each of them. I will start with Police Officer Miles Franks, number 114, received his bachelor's in criminal justice from California State University in 2016. After spending a year with the Newport News Police Department in Virginia, he joined the city of Bowie in the late 2021 upon his move to Joppa, Maryland. We have Police Officer Caitlin Dunkley, number 117, who comes to us from our own city of Bowie. After graduating from the Leonard Hall Junior Naval Academy, she attended the Prince George's County Police Academy of her own accord and was welcomed to the city of Bowie's police department in January of this year. And we also have Police Officer Karina Phillips, number 118 of Laurel, Maryland, joined the City of Bowie Police Department this January. After pursuing an education in criminal justice in New York, she spent 5 years serving the Metropolitan Police Department in our nation's capital. At this time, I would like to administer the oath. Officer, would you please raise your right hand? I state your name. Do swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland and support the Constitution and laws thereof, and that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment, diligently and faithfully, without prejudice, faith and without partiality, execute the office of regular and state your position, member of the police department, according to the Constitution and the laws of this state. On behalf of the City Council, all the citizens of Bowie, Maryland, and the chief and others, welcome. And we thank you for your appreciation in wanting to serve Bowie's finest. Thank you.
Can we take a moment to get a picture right here? Small enough group. Here, get the flag. Congratulations.
Chief and our new officers, we are so very proud of you. And we want to thank you so very much. Being one who comes from a family of law enforcement, this is an exciting time for myself as well as we do this. So again, congratulations. Thank you. Madam City Clerk, we will now move. Do we have any, I don't see anything for city boards and committees, is that correct?
Okay, just give us a minute, Mayor, till they are all settled back in. They were taking pictures up here. Okay, we're good to go, Mayor.
Yeah, the question was, do we have any, I don't see any city boards and committees on the agenda, is that correct?
Correct, we don't have any for this evening.
Okay, we will now move to council announcements. I think I would like to say the first announcement being that those may have noticed or realized that Councilwoman Ndubamadu is not with us this evening. And that's because she is recovering from a car crash. So that I ask all of you, keep her in your thoughts this evening. Are there any other announcements?
Yeah, oh, go ahead,
Yes, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor Pro Tem?
It's actually on behalf of the Councilwoman Ndubamadu as well. Clearly, she has a concussion and she's recovering at home now. But on behalf of her folks in District 4, she wants to let folks know that Jose and her are taking a drive on Friday to look at some of the complaints that she's been getting from residents, and that she hopes to get some feedback for you guys over the next couple weeks as we move forward here.
Thank you. Any other announcements?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilwoman Harrison, go right ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to make a brief, just a short statement in regards to what happened this weekend. I just wanted to say that I stand in solidarity with our neighbors against the horrible racist propaganda that was distributed in our neighborhoods. I want to thank our Bowie Police Department for cleaning up that mess and trashing that propaganda. You'll hear more from our chief later, but I just wanted to share that it was a horrible incident, and we hope and pray that that does not happen again in our city.
Thank you.
I have one other comment, one other announcement regarding the Maryland Homeowner Assistance Fund. I just wanted to share with our residents, ask if you're struggling with your mortgage payment or other housing costs due to COVID-19 related financial hardships, the Maryland Homeowner Assistance Fund is available to help. Please go to maryland.gov to get additional information, or you can contact me for more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? From
Yes.
any other council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Is that Councilman Gardner?
It sure is. Thank you. Thank you. I too wanted to speak in reference to the letters of anti-Semitism that occurred over the weekend and that were spread throughout our community here in Bowie. And I wanted to start by saying I condemn this act of anti-Semitism and encourage that the continuation for all neighbors to report such occurrences to our Bowie Police Department, as well as to ADL League, the Anti-Defamation League. There's no place for this type of hatred, propaganda in our city and our community. And many of our neighbors reached out to me and were appalled by the letters. And I just definitely want to speak and let them know, along with this entire body, that I stand in complete solidarity with our neighbors. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any other announcements at this time from any council members?
Do you want to go ahead? Mr. Mayor, just one quick thing.
Go right ahead, Councilman.
Also on the same topic, unfortunately, as that was in Chapel Forge, my area. I just want to reiterate and echo the sentiments that my council colleagues have shared. I also want to share with folks, in the event that you do get material like that in the future, please reach out to the city and we will be in touch with the Anti-Defamation League about that. That's the #1 request they had for us. Unfortunately, these type of anti-Semitic incidents are not uncommon, and it's important that we as a community affirm that we stand with the Jewish community, we stand with all people against this type of anti-Semitism and against this type of, frankly, nonsense. I won't name the group that was responsible, but they are a group of lowlives, like so many of these folks, who just want attention. And so if you are getting these flyers, please just share it with the city, and we'll be happy to take a look at it. I also want to echo the thanks to our police department. I believe they got the call at 10:20 on Saturday morning about the flyers, and less than a half an hour later, those flyers were gone. So thank you to them for their quick response.
Mr. Mayor.
Any other council members?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead. Councilman Wolfley.
Yes, I want to chime in and join in support with the rest of the council as well, the comments made earlier on this subject. But I also want to point out that it is encouraging to see the community taking offense and reacting to this in the way that it has, which is really encouraging, because there is no room for this sort of thinking, this sort of behavior, and it's horrible. And it's good to know that there are people out there who are, so supportive of those who are being targeted, and it's absolutely inappropriate and so far beyond what's acceptable in today's society, any place. It's just immoral and a terrible thing to see happening, and it's really a shame to see it happening in our community, and there's no room for that. So thank you very much for everybody who's been participating in remediating the problems, and thank you very much for the community support as well.
Well, again, I'd like to thank our police department, our citizens. As you know, we made sure that I myself wanted to make sure that, in conjunction with all of my other colleagues, that we are really disappointed that people still conduct themselves in that way. But I'm happy that we let them know that here in Bowie, we're not tolerating that. And again, I congratulate and thank our police officers. I thank our citizens, and I thank everyone for falling so strongly behind our community and making sure that people understand that Bowie is not the place for their hate. And so with that, we will now be moving on to the city manager's report. City manager.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, and residents out in TV land there, I'd like to say that, first of all, we're hard at work on preparing the proposed budget for FY 2023 that we'll be presenting to you in the first week in April. We've completed our reviews of the department's requests and we've incorporated the guidance that we received in January from the council, and we're hard at work crunching the numbers for what the final proposed budget is going to be. The other thing I'd like to compliment the police department and our HR department. In a day and age when it's really hard to get police officers to come work for you, I think it's certainly a testament to Chief Nesky's leadership and the hard work of our recruiters that we were able to swear in three officers in a time where a lot of people don't want to be the police anymore because of one thing or another, and it's very difficult to recruit. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, City Manager. At this time, we will move on to the consent agenda, and I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of the consent agenda, please respond with an aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, the motion carries. We will now move on to the old business, and that being the water filtration rebate program. This time I'll turn it over to city staff.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Daniel Mears, Assistant City Manager with the city. In January, our Public Works staff presented an update on the tuberculation program in regards to the replacement of water pipes throughout the city of Bowie's water system. And 2 weeks ago, at the request of council, we had a presentation relative to a water filter rebate program, and the council had asked staff to go back and make a couple of modifications to that. So if you bear with me this evening, I want to provide a bit of information in regards to the water filter rebate program and the changes that the staff is proposing associated with that. So if I may. So the City Council requested a program to address the water discoloration. We have just over 7,900 water customers in the city of Bowie. And depending on the location in the system, we do have customers that experience some discoloration due to the tuberculation in the water system. And an important thing, as I did 2 weeks ago, as our staff did in January, we do want to stress to our residents that are on the Bowie water system, our water is safe to drink. The city of Bowie tests our water. It is tested in regards to the Maryland Department of the Environment standards, and our Bowie's water is safe to drink, acknowledging that there are periods of time where there is discoloration in the water system. So the water filtration by the customers is a means to address discoloration within the system. And the rebate program that is being proposed and considered by the council would be for Bowie water system customers. This would not be a system for WSSC customers. It would just be for those on Bowie water. So the idea behind the program is that the utility customers would provide a quote for a water filtration system that would be proposed to address the discoloration. And the City Council was looking for a couple areas to ensure that we were getting at the properties, the customers that are experiencing the issue. And those relate to the persistence of the discoloration and the significance of the discoloration. So this is where we've expounded from 2 weeks ago. And the next slide, please. So for the persistence of the discoloration and or the sedimentation would need to be detectable through the customer's fixtures. And for the significance of the discoloration, it would need to be measured on 3 separate tests with at least 2 weeks between each test. So one of the things the council was discussing was some people may have an issue at one period of time and then it goes away. So by having 3 separate tests, it would show that there is a persistent issue, and that would show that level of significance relative to how frequently that issue would occur within the system. The next slide, please, relevant to the significance of discoloration. I had mentioned that staff would need to go out and verify at the fixtures that there would be sedimentation in the water, and that is done through a turbidity test. And turbidity test, this is common in water analysis. The measurement is in NTUs. That's a nephelometric turbidity unit. And there is essentially, this is detecting the amount of light that can pass through water, and there is a scale associated with that. In this graphic, you can see an example of different levels of discoloration and the NTU associated with that discoloration. So staff is recommending that the turbidity test must show a meter reading greater than 50 NTU. So NTU is completely clear at a scale of 0.0. And the more turbidity, the more particulates that obstruct light going through that water sample results in a higher NTU. If we can go to the next slide. The remainder of this presentation is the same as it was 2 weeks ago relative to the rebate. In order to facilitate the program, our rebate customers would need to be pre-authorized by the city of Bowie. It would be limited funding that would be available on a first-come, first-served basis, and the costs for equipment and installation could be rebated up to $1,800 per customer. Once approved in regards to the persistence and the significance of the issue in the water, customers would provide the receipts to be eligible for the rebate. The city staff would verify the installation and then process the rebate afterwards. One more slide, please. Again, we're looking for some direction from the City Council in regards to the level of funding that would be authorized. For each $50,000 in funding that would be available, a minimum of 27 water customers could receive a rebate depending on the filtration system that they had installed in their home. And of course, the number of customers that would serve would depend ultimately what level of that water filter system they had installed. So it could be more than 27. Our next step slide, please. So for our next steps, we would be looking for the City Council to provide a motion to authorize the use of utility funds to finance the program. Depending on the level of funding that would be authorized by the City Council, we may need a budget amendment or some other method of raising revenue to ensure that there was adequate funding for the program. So we're available for any questions or discussion amongst the City Council at this time.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question and a couple of remarks.
You're muted, Mayor.
All right, thank you so very much for the program. I believe that was Councilmember Michael Stepp that wanted to had a question and comment.
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead, Councilman.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you to my council colleagues. I believe it was Councilmember Gardner who first raised this. For those of you who are aware, and as the folks who came out tonight mentioned, this is not a new issue. The city has had a water and sewer system now since as long as Levitt Buoy has existed. As I've said many times over past meetings over the decades, councils were reluctant to have water and sewer rates rise with the inevitable long-term needs of the system. That wasn't a staff decision, that was a council decision taken over generations. We kept our water rates very, very, very low because raising them was considered too unpopular. The result is we raised enough money to maintain the system day to day, but we did not raise the kind of money necessary to do the inevitable long-term repair that the system now requires, which is estimated to be somewhere to the tune of $130 million for the entire 90-mile system. So that's what we're facing right now. In the past, we received opinions that we were unable to use general fund money to fund the system. We are now receiving different opinions that in fact we can use general fund money to support the system. That changes the ballgame considerably, and it now means that our water and sewer system is actively competing with other capital improvement priorities. That's something that we're going to have to wrestle with in the City Council. That being said, even with access to the general funds, we do not have $130,000 or $1 million in our general fund to fix the whole system at once. Fortunately, the system is not all aged kind of at the same pace. We mapped out the system years ago and have been slowly making progress on replacing pipe as we're able, supported by the additional fee that was tacked on. Our combined water and sewer rate remains lower than WSSE, so about half my residents are on WSSE, so I'm very familiar, and I'm on WSSE, so I'm very familiar with how their system operates. But we are gradually going to have to continue to ask our water ratepayers to pay more over time to help recapitalize this. All that being said, this is a challenge. I recognize there are no easy answers, and while I absolutely agree with staff that our water is safe to drink, I have a lot of friends in Levitt Buoy. I am there almost every day. I drink water directly out of the tap, out of the water and sewer system, unfiltered. My colleague sitting to my left lives in Longridge, is on the water and sewer system, drinks it every day. Sometimes the impression is given that we don't touch this water. We do. All that being said, I absolutely agree with the residents that you shouldn't have even unsightly water, even if it's safe. You should be able to have the peace of mind that your water is coming out clear, and I recognize that, and I absolutely agree with it. In fact, I agree with all the remarks that were made tonight. So I think this program is a great idea. It is going to be important for it to be limited for the time being. If we were to, I think open it up further, we'd be looking at potentially $14 million in water filtration system rebates, and that is money that would not then be available to go to actually fixing the system. So I think this program is reasonable. I think it's limited. And as long as staff who will be implementing the program feel comfortable that they can make objective decisions approving or rejecting applications on the basis that are laid out, then I'm comfortable to proceed. And I appreciate my colleague for bringing this up, and I do appreciate the residents who came forward tonight to talk to us.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other council members comment at this time? Mayor Pro Tem? No?
No comments.
Okay, I would like to make a comment, and that is, I think we all agree that we don't want our citizens having to deal with brown water. And I want you to understand that this isn't something that we haven't discussed at length and haven't been addressing over several years, and even trying to get additional funding from our congressionals and others. So we are doing that. I do think that the idea of this program is a real good one. And I think we should look at moving forward with it. And one of the things is, though we're talking about this $50,000 first, it'll also give our staff a chance to work out any kinks in the program and whether or not we continue and how we continue and the rate, and really get a feel for how it can work. And so I hope that my colleagues do agree and that we do move forward with getting this implemented immediately. And so with that, I will open up to any other comments or questions from my colleagues.
Mr. Mayor?
Go right ahead, Councilman.
Yep. I would also say that looking at this, this is something we need to move, this is something we need to move forward with. Just one of the comments I wanted to correct earlier thought in the statement. The reason we drink bottled water is mostly, I think, if memory serves me, a change we implemented at COVID time to reduce the number of drinking glasses and things like that we have up here at the dais. Prior to that, we had a nice big pitcher of water with some ice in it. That's one part of the puzzle right there. The second part is this is actually WSSC water that we're consuming here at City Hall. So it's neither here nor there, but I did want to make that comment. The additional component is that progress has been made, which is good news, and I'm encouraging staff to continue on the efforts to accelerate what we've discussed so far in terms of the additional miles, and that's good news. I know that staff is working towards moving that forward because we did finish earlier than anticipated on the first part. which I just want to remind folks that Heather Hills has now completely been remedied or remediated, I suppose is a better word. So there is both improvement in terms of water flow as well as the quality of the water that they are getting in that neighborhood. And we still have more to go, and we're not looking to stop or rest on our laurels. However, I think this is a good next step. So thank you to staff for continuing this and making this a viable option for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments from any of the other council members?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to, this is Councilmember Gardner. I'd like to thank my colleagues.
Gardner, go right ahead, please.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'd like to thank my colleagues in supporting this. It is definitely something that we should do or should have done some time ago, but it's better late than never. So I definitely appreciate everyone moving forward in this and coming together and giving, not, someone said tonight, citizens or so. I want to take that a step further. These are our friends and neighbors, and we definitely want our friends, neighbors, and family members to have clean, healthy, clear drinking water. And I thank you all for supporting this evening. Thank you again.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, Councilwoman, go right ahead. The floor is open for motion.
I'd like to move to authorize the use of utility funds to finance the water filtration program.
Second.
Yes,
It's been moved and properly second that we authorize the filtration program at this time. Any discussion?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I need to just make an amendment to my motion that it's $50,000.
Second again.
Yes. Thank you, Councilwoman. It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none at this time, call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, I believe that was a unanimous decision and motion carries. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, can I make one further comment? Just to
Please go right ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you. I just ask that city staff please keep us apprised of when you get to the 27 number so we can determine how we move forward after that.
Well, we'll certainly keep you all informed as to, on a weekly basis, as to how we're doing this. But what I wanted to say was this. What we intend to do is take the eligibility criteria that was listed, that you all voted on, and turn that into a checklist, like we used when I in aviation and other facilities, so that by the time we get to the end of a checklist, somebody's met that criteria, we can check it off and inspect it and move forward. So it'll be a standard document that our people will use to evaluate the request, all right, as fiduciaries for this money. Thank you.
And Mr. Lott, will the residents be able to speak with a person if they have an issue with maybe how it's evaluated, how the water's evaluated?
Well, yes, we'll be able to speak with initially the utility superintendent, most likely, and it could, end up at my level with an appeal, and it's going to be sort of black and white as we listed it. Either you meet it or you don't, or you're either consistent or you aren't, and we kind of laid that out. And what we want to make sure is that as we publicize this, that residents don't go out and do this without the pre-approval. And that could be problematic, because if we can't ascertain that they've got the problem, I certainly can't pay them. That's just impossible.
And how will it be publicized?
Well, through our communications system, using our communication division, social media, our alerts, and our newsletters. And on the website, of course.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you, City Manager. We will now move to the detailed site plan for Melford Townhome architecture. I will turn that over to city staff as well.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I'm Joe Minert, the City of Bowie Planning Director, and I'd like to introduce this item. This is detailed site plan 18034-02 for the Melford Village Townhome architecture. This piece of the Melford property is approximately 72 acres. The Bowie Advisory Planning Board reviewed this request on their meeting of February 8th and unanimously recommended approval of the request in accordance with the staff recommendation. I would note that the city does have the ability through an approved covenant and annexation agreement that requires that the applicant first come to the city with the request for detailed site plan approval prior to going to the county. And so they're here today. Nothing has been submitted to the county on this particular request. We did hold a stakeholders meeting in December. A total of 3 stakeholders attended to review the architecture at that time. This proposal has been reviewed by staff against the zoning ordinance design guidelines, and the requirement for a site plan approval under the Prince George's County zoning ordinance is that the planning board may approve a detailed site plan if it finds that the plan represents a reasonable alternative for satisfying the site design guidelines of the zoning ordinance. We also looked at the property or the request's compliance with the city's own development review guidelines and policies, as well as the design guidelines that were approved with the conceptual site plan for Melford in 2014. And as a result of this review, staff finds that the detailed site plan does comply with those requirements, and in conclusion, staff recommends approval. There is no one here tonight from the Bowie Advisory Planning Board. The chairman was not able to make it tonight, but as I mentioned, they reviewed the case on February 8th and recommended approval. And that concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions at this time? Because I see this is open for a public hearing. Do we want any questions before we open the public hearing? I will then, at this time, open this for a public hearing. Do we have any speakers at this time? Madam City Clerk?
No, Mayor, we do not have anyone signed up to speak for this evening.
Okay, having no one speak at this time, I'll declare the public hearing closed at this time. Council members, any questions or anything you'd like to say at this time?
Mayor, we have the representatives from Melford. He's going to do a quick presentation before we go on to comments from council.
Okay, thank you.
It's okay. Good. Well, it's a pleasure to be with you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. For the record, Robert Antonetti with the law firm of Shipley and Horn. We're pleased to represent the applicant in this case, St. John Properties, Inc., and Mid-Atlantic Builders regarding this detailed site plan amendment to the townhouse section within the Melford Town Center. Tonight with us we have Mr. Andrew Roud, regional partner with St. John Properties. We have Mr. Ken Finley and Mr. Matt Destino, both development managers with St. John Property. Mr. Brian Falk with Dewberry, the civil engineers on the project. And we have Mr. Kevin Fleming, vice president with Mid-Atlantic Builders. I'd like to thank the planning director for his presentation and thoughtful staff report. It's been very good to work with as always. Today we're here to approve the architecture for the previously approved townhouse lots for the Melford Town Center. So it is an amendment to an already approved detailed site plan. Just for a little bit of history, what's on the screen before you, since it's been a while since I've been back before you on Melford, this is the conceptual site plan for Melford that was approved through the city and the county, which set forth a mix of uses, including residential uses, and in terms of townhouses, it approved up to a potential maximum of 500 towns or attached product. Here is a copy of the illustrative site plan approved with the preliminary plan of subdivision, which tested for public facilities. What's outlined in red is the area of the neighborhood or neighborhoods that contain the attached product, which are the townhouses with the architecture being sought tonight. Here again is the area with the layout that was approved in the detailed site plan. It also shows it in context with other development that exists or is already approved within Melford. Orienting to plan south here are the yellow buildings, which are the Flex R&D buildings. What is in white is the U.S. Census Bureau and the 911 call center, including the Melford House, the Tribute at Melford, which is a successful age-restricted assisted living facility, which is built. In red, over to, I guess, plan left, or to the west, is 2 office buildings, including some retail in front of that, which is beginning construction, and some other items that which you're familiar with, forming the overall Melford project. Proposal tonight is to bring forth additional residential, which again has already been approved through previous entitlements. Here is just a little bit of the connectivity that has been planned and approved as the pedestrian network through the conceptual site plan and preliminary plan, and carried forth through the previous detailed site plan, showing the sidewalk network, I guess in the gold-yellow color, as well as the potential for trail connectivity out to the east. There's a master plan trail running north-south on the eastern portion of the site, closest to the Patuxent River corridor, which this project in its totality will bring that master plan alignment on the property to fruition. There's also a connection leading from Melford Boulevard out under the Maryland 3 overpass bridges into the Buoy sections, which is part of the pedestrian connectivity of this project. And that will also be a forthcoming amenity being brought forth as part of the Melford Town Center. Here is the black and white image, again, of the detailed site plan showing the areas that are subject to this plan and the townhouse layout. I will mention that the 2/2 units that were proposed are no longer being proposed. Again, 500 units were allowed in this section. The preliminary plan showed 293 attached units. Today, we're now down to 249, units which are proposed in the detailed site plan with this architecture will be implementing on this project if you so support it. Here, you'll hear, other than architecture, there's 2 other elements that are being proposed for review. There are 2 common areas which will be programmed with some recreational space. These were areas that were identified as part of the preliminary plan, but now we have the opportunity to show what specific items will be placed within those areas. For example, here's recreational area 1, which was in the middle, that has a variety of hardscaping seating walls, some interpretive signage, a nice open lawn, a well-graded open lawn area, which will be a nice central gathering spot for residents of this section in particular, but it would be open to all residents within the Melford Town Center. Accessible walking paths, which would be going through would go through this area, as well as intricate plantings that would be there to make it a very attractive place to be outdoors. Secondarily, here's recreational area number 2, which shows similar items that were shown on the preliminary plan of subdivision. Bench seating, an open lawn active area, a pavilion for gathering, plantings in the stormwater management areas, which kind of make them amenities and attractive things to look at, as well as a playground and tot lot located in recreational area 2. So there are 3 unit types or 3 elevations or models, that are being proposed. The Gramercy, which is a 20-foot wide product, rear loaded with 2-car garage, that has a square footage of 2,464 square feet. The Greenwich, which is a 20-foot product as well, which has square footage of 1,984 square feet, also rear loaded, 2-car garage. And the Chelsea, which is a 24-foot wide product with a square footage up to 2,833 square feet, so a little over 2,800 square feet. It was mentioned in the staff report in terms of parking, quality of life parking. While this is a mixed-use center and we want to encourage walking, multimodal activity, this also has ample parking. The requirement under the county's parking schedule is 508 spaces required. We're providing 694 spaces. 488 of those would be townhouse spaces, and we're only counting basically the 2 cars in the garage, not anything in the driveways, but those would be 2-car wide driveways as well. But those are not counted in that total. 28 perpendicular spaces and 168 marked parallel spaces within this section alone. So we're well over the minimum required under the county's parking schedule, because we know that parking is a quality of life issue, and in this section of the Melford Town Center, we want to make sure that that's adequately covered in the program. So with that, that's the overview of where we were and what we're proposing. As to the specifics of the architecture, first I'm going to call up Mr. Andrew Rao to introduce Kevin Fleming for Mid-Atlantic, and then we'll be here to answer any questions that you might have. So thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good
Just
evening.
wanted to make some very brief comments. Just a bit of context. I think this, I was saying to the consulting team behind us, we've been working on this now, or I have, for 11 years. This is sort of, I think, this is the real thing. Just so you know, when we had this product, as you know, St. John doesn't build homes. We went out to the market and kind of asked for requests for proposals from all the builders. And I'm really pleased to say that we landed with Mid-Atlantic. They're out of Rockville. They've been in the county for 40 years. They built, Kevin will give you the full story on their background. But the main thing I like about it is, and I think you'll see from the architecture, that it's really a top-notch product. I've heard for the whole 11 years that the city in particular and the county wanted to get some high-quality residential product here, and I can't think of a higher quality. I think you'll be impressed. I hope you will be. And I think we negotiated a very, very long time. Everyone was diligent about it, both sides, but we couldn't have picked a better partner. And so with Kevin Fleming, will get up from Mid-Atlantic. But I'd also like to put a shout out to staff. We've been working with these guys a long time, and particularly want to point out the hard work that Joe and Frank, who's now retired, have done. So we wouldn't be here without those guys. So just want to make sure everyone was aware of that.
Thank you, Andrew. Kevin Fleming with Mid-Atlantic Builders. It's nice to be with you. As Andrew mentioned, we've been building in the county and in the city for 40 years. We've done many projects here in the city, and we currently have a project just opening here in the city, South Lake, which we just opened this past weekend. So we're very excited. I guess there we go. Let me start here. So as was mentioned, we intend to build 3 different house plans. We have designed 3 very unique houses exclusive to Melford. We started from basically a blank sheet of paper. We came up with 3 ideas for new houses exclusive here. We haven't built these anywhere else, and we don't intend to build them anywhere else. We took a lot of vision from the existing Melford. So we looked at the hotel that's there. We looked at the office buildings that are there. We looked at the new senior building that's there. And we tried to balance the architecture which currently exists in the community to what we wanted to bring forward. So we've really tried to kind of take an expression of both a contemporary look, which we're seeing as kind of an overall design theme in the marketplace, along with some of the traditional points that are in Melford today. And so what we've kind of come forward with, we think, are some very high quality material elevations. As you will see, we are going to feature brick. We are featuring cement board siding, so there's no vinyl siding at all in this community. All the fronts, sides, and the rear will be cement board siding. There are low maintenance exteriors. There's a combination of metal pieces, both in shed dormers. There's some railing. We've spent a long time looking at window placement, trying to come up with window patterns. One of the biggest challenges in townhouse communities is the windows can get a little bit monotonous. So we spent a lot of time trying to come up with how do we create a whole different kind of window pattern to the community so that it would be fresh and it would be unique and would be different. As was mentioned, we have 3 products, one that's roughly, call it 2,000 square feet. So we're going to try to meet a broad part of the marketplace. So we'll have a 2,000 square foot home, we'll have a 2,400 square foot home, and we'll have a 2,800 square foot home. So we feel like with that kind of offering, we can reach the best kind of opportunities within the market by keeping things both affordable, but at the same time, as we've all learned with COVID and more people staying at home, your home has to be much more flexible than it's ever been in the past. And so these are all 3-bedroom homes. They have the ability to be a 4-bedroom home depending upon how you configure the home. We have kind of made a signature in our communities of having a multi-generation suite, so we know and we recognize whether it's parents coming back to live with you or maybe adult children that are coming back. We have designed basically the lower level to have a suite so that you can have an additional family member in your home. So as also was mentioned, all these homes are rear-loaded townhouses, so there'll be 2 spaces in the garage, and there'll be 2 spaces as well in the driveway. So we feel like we insisted and we feel like we are very comfortable with the amount of parking based on our experience elsewhere in the county. As I mentioned, we spent a lot of time, let me show you, that's the 20-foot program. Whoops, sorry, here we go. This is the 24-foot program. This is the larger of the homes. Again, we've tried to come up with window patterns. One of the things that we've done on this home is we have an enclosed entry foyer so you can get out of the elements. These houses feature indoor-outdoor space, which you don't see here, but in the floor plan, we've intended that on the 2nd level where you're going to have a dining room, a kitchen, a family room in the back. Then we also have an indoor-outdoor room that is actually inside the home, but the exterior wall is open so that you get this opportunity for outdoor living, which so many of us have needed over the last 2 years, trying to find a way to kind of, get out of the elements, but at the same time be protected from the elements. So that's a piece that we have designed into these homes, which is relatively new for us. We have 3 elevations per floor plan, and as I mentioned, we're going to have multiple color schemes available for the homeowners to pick from. We'll make sure that we don't have a repetition of houses across from each other, which we've dealt with in the past. And I guess I would like to say, we've put a lot of thought and effort trying to make sure that what we're doing is matching what ultimately exists in the community, but also providing such a very unique offering that, again, we won't have anywhere else in the county. So this is kind of the offering that we're proposing, and happy to answer any of your questions.
Hey, thank you so very much. At this time, council members, are there any questions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman.
Actually, it's more of a remark than a question. I just wanted to say thank you to the applicant for coming before us many, many times over the years and for working with us. In my own experience with everyone that I've talked to, you guys have shown extraordinarily good faith. You have dotted all your I's, crossed all your T's, accepted all of our demands, put up with, an awful lot of challenges as this process has gone on, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. Over the years, I've certainly, I don't think I can bill myself as a huge proponent of new development generally, but I recognize that we are facing 3 things right now, in particular 3 things that we're hearing more and more from our communities. The first is a desire for more and better businesses. When we talk to the business community, we hear the same thing. You need the customer base for it. Your existing independent restaurants are sitting vacant, they're closing. So this is a critical solution to that. 2, we have a housing affordability issue in the country and in this community. We're in a position to do something about that. We're not talking about bringing in something that's inferior or unworthy of our community. This is a high-end, serious development that's going to enhance our community. My third comment is not so much related to developers specifically, but I do have a concern with how the development process works in general, and I think it isn't designed to be great for developers. It's also not designed to be great for residents at the same time, and that for me does continue to be a concern. You guys pay a fortune in impact fees, but we end up really not seeing the money, and that's not your fault. That's, based on years and years and years of how it's been done, and that's something that I continue to vocally advocate for. We need to work with our county leaders to fix that and make sure that the fees that you guys are paying, which are considerable and keep going up, are actually going to the infrastructure, the roads, the schools, where the new development is being built. That said, I know St. John's has made a significant investment in the roads in this area already, which we do appreciate. But in general, I just want to reiterate that that continues to be a sticking point for me, but not something that the applicant is in a position to do anything about. It's simply a related thought. So I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments from council members?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Gardner?
Yes, thank you. I want to first start by echoing the words of my council colleague, Councilmember Staff. I totally agree very much with them. Where I have been watching this project over the years, and wow, 11 years, quite some time, and you're right, absolutely, Councilmember Staff. It is quite difficult for developers here in Prince George's County. But I wanted to start from where he left off, pretty much saying this is a really fine project. It is always my concern that first, if we're going to have development in Bowie, it should be top notch. We should get the same sort of development projects that I see in other counties, neighboring counties such as Anne Arundel and Montgomery. This project, it definitely feels good. It looks great, looks like a neighborhood. I really must say I like the rear entrance of the garage doors, as well as the parking. So you have parking for 4 vehicles. That's sensational, keeping cars off of the streets and not always looking like an eyesore, that can be quite a bit. And I do have a couple questions. I understand by looking at it, your smaller version of which you have is the Greenwich.
Yes.
Correct. What is the starting price, the starting point that you expect at Greenwich?
At this point, we haven't kind of finalized pricing because I don't think we're going to be open until the summer and the way the market is moving with the supply chain and so forth. But I think that we'll see prices kind of in the 500 and the 600s as well.
500 to 600 range, okay. And so are we saying 500 to 600 for the Greenwich, or are we saying at the starting point, are we saying for all of the different elevations?
Right. So kind of of the 3 homes, I would say that we'll be in the 5s, and we'll probably be moving into the upper 5s and into the low 6s. Okay. And you mentioned that you referenced not available to this summer. So when are you looking to breaking ground on this? So we're working through this entire process between this and the site planning through the county. So the expectation is this summer of 2022 is when we hope to be open.
Oh, really?
So I would say that...
that's rather aggressive.
It is aggressive, but if we can get through the process, that's our expectation.
Okay. And you mentioned some of the features such as color choices and different patterns. You even mentioned an indoor-outdoor room, which, definitely during COVID, like as you mentioned, many of us found that to be needed.
Everybody's looking for another place to go when everybody's home trying to do school, trying to do their job, et cetera. So we realized that the indoor-outdoor space was a very important thing, and so this project and the size of the lots allowed us to be a little more creative in the design, and so designing that indoor-outdoor space in all 3 plans. It's done a little bit differently in each of the plans, but we wanted to make sure that every plan had some kind of component.
Okay. And I have, speaking for myself, I'm a townhome owner myself currently, and I don't like the upkeep and maintenance of a large yard and snow and driveways, so I do rely on my HOA to do a number of those things. So as I age, I'm always looking about aging in place and not having to move. Will your units come with an elevator?
They do not come with an elevator.
Okay.
But as a local custom builder, if somebody came to us with that kind of request, we've anticipated flexibility in the design to be able to allow you to age in place. So if you were in a situation where you came to us and you wanted to have an elevator in the house, there's some workability in the floor plan, specifically in the largest home, where we could possibly get an elevator to be able to be designed into the house plan. We've also made, in the other 2 floor plans, we've made the stairs wider than normal, and we have some straight run stairs. So if you needed, say, a stair lift to get up, these kind of wider stairs and the design of the stair could accommodate
Absolutely.
that kind of need on a go-forward basis. But ultimately, what we've learned over the years that we've done this, we haven't had a lot of requests, if you will, to do this, but we're very capable and very willing to work with a homeowner to kind of figure out how to best design the house to be able to meet your needs both today and to meet your needs over time.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That's good to know. Thank you very much. As Councilmember and staff has said, you're St. John's, you guys have done it again. Thank you very much for putting together a fine project. Welcome again to Bowie, Mid-Atlantic. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments or questions from any other councilman?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just have a couple of questions.
Go ahead, Councilwoman, please.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. It looks very nice, very thoughtful in your development of the townhomes. One question I do have is, you mentioned a couple of times about outdoor living. What does your tree canopy look like, and tree coverage at the townhome units look like for the lots?
Let me let you have the best subject matter expert on that.
Okay, great.
Hi, Councilwoman. Again, Robert Antonetti with Shipley and Horn. So the county's tree canopy ordinance has been satisfied pursuant to the detailed site plan, which set up the lots and where the development areas were going to be in this townhouse section. So that was already approved, but it did meet the tree canopy ordinance requirements. Also, this project has been designed with ample street trees. Some of the foundational principles of the Melford Village design guidelines, look to maximize opportunities for street trees, for shading, for coverage, and things of that nature. So the streetscape of the Melford Town Center is very rich with those types of elements for shading along trees and major arteries throughout the project. So the tree canopy ordinance has been satisfied through the prior detailed site plan, and this isn't going to change that at all. This is really going to introduce the specific architecture. In addition, in terms of kind of the greenness of the project as a whole,
thank you.
As part of the development, there was 100 acres that St. John's donated to the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission along the edge of the property towards the Patuxent River. So that was part of a proffer very early in the conceptual site plan process, in addition to the master plan trail, which they're obligated to build throughout kind of that green area corridor as well. So it'll really make nature quite accessible and really allow for the interaction of the resident with that green area that's been provided as part of earlier entitlement commitments for the overall Melford project. So we're excited to bring this on board and actually generate the population who'll get to utilize these green areas and amenities overall.
That's great. And thank you for your question, for your answer. One more question in regards to that. What other environmental considerations have you all made in the project?
Sure. Well, in terms of stormwater management, the state had gone to a more rigorous stormwater management requirement where when Melford was initially conceived as the Maryland Science and Technology Center, they used very large facilities. So some of the ponds that you see throughout the project are actually functioning as stormwater management devices. Right. The state has now moved towards smaller devices called environmental site design, where they actually look for you to treat the quality and quantity very locally next to development that's being proposed. And we have environmental site design, or ESD devices, integrated throughout the Melford Town Center project as a whole. So some of the recreational amenities that we showed where there's plantings, those are actually serving as bioretention areas, microfiltration areas that take stormwater, capture the quantity of water runoff, and then also treat it locally right there. So that's a form of kind of green environmental design which the state has now moved to and which we've incorporated as part of the redevelopment or retrofitting of the Melford Town Center development, as we're the hole in the donut, and all the existing development around it utilizes those large ponds. The project also as a whole, again, getting to the design guidelines for the overall project, but which the city just approved, incorporates elements of the principles of LEED ND, neighborhood design, which deals with things such as closeness, proximity to different mixed-use elements to maximize walkability, orientation of buildings, take advantage of solar orientation, so you can take advantage or lessen the extreme variances between hot and cold seasons and utilize the sun as a natural warming element, for example. So the placement of these buildings, the placement of these neighborhoods, the location of the roadways, all build on those principles in the design guidelines, which were again borrowing from the LEED ND principles. So yeah, it's an exciting project that really runs the gamut of kind of new, thoughtful development, looking to maximize sustainability and environmental sensitivity.
Much appreciated.
You're
As
welcome.
you know, Bowie, we're very concerned about that, and climate change is one of our priorities. So we want to make sure that any development done here is certainly takes environmental concerns very seriously. So thank you.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other questions from any other council members or comments? Hearing none at this point, it's currently eligible for action on the detailed site plan.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Gardner, the floor is open for your motion.
Yes, sir. I'd like to move for approval of detailed site plan DSP-18034-02, Melford Townhome Architecture, St. John's Properties, Inc.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we accept the detailed site plan. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
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 Nay, same favor.
Nay.
Okay, City Clerk?
Mayor, I have a vote of 5-1 for the passing.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good evening. We will now move on to the detailed site plan, DSP 2003 Mill Branch Crossing. And I'll turn it over to city staff.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I'm Joe Meinert, the City of Bowie Planning Director, and this detailed site plan is for Mill Branch Crossing Residential. It's the first detailed site plan within the mixed commercial use Mill Branch Crossing development. This property is about 70 acres. It's located in the CSC zone at the northeast quadrant of US 301 and Mill Branch Road. By way of background, I wanted to mention that the city did annex this property back in 2012, and last year in early 2021, the council did review a preliminary plan of subdivision for this site, which set up the internal roads and the lotting pattern. At that time, in January 2024, the city council was unable to pass a motion either in favor or against the preliminary plan of subdivision, so there was no recommendation from the city at the county planning board hearing. The county planning board did approve the preliminary plan in April of 2021, and the development that's proposed tonight does follow exactly that preliminary plan layout. The request is for a detailed site plan approval of 408 multifamily apartment units and 190 townhouse dwelling units. And so you have the site plan, you also have the architecture being proposed tonight. A virtual stakeholders meeting was held by city staff on February 1st. We did have a couple people attend that. The questions or concerns that came up were about the improvements to Mill Branch Road, the effect of the development on aquifers and what the buffering was proposed, as well as the timing of the infrastructure that would be built with the construction. This development, as I mentioned, or this application includes architecture from 5 builders, and these will be discussed tonight by the applicant. We provided a table as attachment 4 to the staff report that summarizes the each of the models and the square footages of those models for council's information. In terms of the Bowie Advisory Planning Board review, they held a public hearing on February 8th and voted to recommend approval of the detailed site plan with 3 conditions. And I'd like to discuss the conditions as they do relate to the staff recommendation. We basically recommended 3 conditions of approval. The first has to do with the detailed site plan being associated with a companion case, which is a parking departure case. The request was that the Advisory Planning Board reviewed was to reduce the standard size parking space to 19 by 8 or 9 by 18, excuse me, feet spaces, and that was approved by the Advisory Board and is currently pending council's final action in March. And so that would be a condition of approval, that this detailed site plan is contingent on receiving that departure from the city, or the plan will have to be revised to comply with the parking standards of the zoning ordinance. The second condition has to do with something that we did bring up as staff during the preliminary plan review, and that was to identify a location for the off-site woodland mitigation, and the applicant has been working on that. We've had some discussions. The city policy is that the off-site mitigation should take place within the same subwatershed as the development site, or as close to the city as possible. And so at the time of the writing of the staff report, we had not received any conclusive determination on that, so that's still recommended as a condition. And then the third condition is the one that the Advisory Planning Board modified, and the difference between that condition and the condition in our staff report to you is that our staff recommendation is that a minimum of 10% of the multifamily units shall be provided to individuals earning between 60 to 80% of the area's average median income, which is considered workforce housing. It is council's policy, and has been since March, when you adopted the revised development review guidelines, that developments should provide a minimum of 10% multifamily units at that workforce housing price range in order to try to address the challenges that are facing the region for housing affordability. The Advisory Planning Board reviewed this condition, and they felt that the developers should be encouraged to make this a goal, the 10% as a goal, and down the road see what they can do to try to address that need. But the difference between the Advisory Planning Board and the staff recommendation that you have tonight is that staff is actually recommending going with council's policy of providing the minimum 10%. So that's the difference between the Advisory Board's recommendation and city staff's recommendation. Again, the Advisory Board reviewed this on their February 8th meeting. They did recommend approval with 3 conditions. Chairman Rogers is unavailable tonight, so he had a conflict, and so I'm just providing that background for you in his place. At this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions, or that concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Minor. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Minor at this time?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I got a couple questions as council members.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Minor, I appreciate your presentation tonight. I was reading in the BAPP report, Mr. Scott's raised a question about the rationale for the 10% workforce housing. When we first put that policy in place back in March, I seem to recall a discussion about why we set that number at 10%. Can you remind us about that?
That's a standard requirement that other communities have had in the metropolitan area. The workforce housing is a regional issue, and that's a typical requirement that other governments had, and so I think we just followed suit when we adopted the policy.
Sure. And I appreciated Mr. Scott's asking the question. One major challenge that we hear from businesses all the time nowadays is they cannot find workers. And why they can't find workers isn't exactly a mystery. The ones that aren't living with their grandparents in Leavitt right now are living, 2 hours away where it's more affordable. And so we're just not attracting a workforce to actually do all the jobs. that the community depends on, and that is a major, major, major challenge for our businesses. So I do absolutely support the 10% workforce housing requirement. I want to be clear about that. One of my questions is for the applicant, and it's related to the proportion of commercial development to residential development. I'm not the expert, I'm just the local councilman, but I'm a little bit concerned about the total amount of commercial development that we're adding to this space. We have been having challenges on the 301 corridor with commercial, and I'm a little bit concerned that we might be introducing maybe too much new commercial in the area. I don't know if the applicant has any thoughts about that or just wanted to comment on that generally.
That was a question directed to city staff.
No, that was a question directed towards the applicant.
Okay, I think what we'll do is then move forward for when he does his presentation.
Fair enough.
I believe that might be addressed then for your councilman.
Fair enough. Thank you. I'll wait then.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Any other questions for staff right at the moment from any other council members? Hearing none, I guess we should move to open the public hearing now. Is that correct?
Mayor, if we could have the developer do his presentation first, and then we'll do the public hearing.
That'll be great. So why don't we bring up the developer, please?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Edward Gibbs, an attorney with offices in Largo. My law firm name is Gibbs & Haller, and I'm pleased to be here this evening representing the applicant and the owner for this detailed site plan. Let me start out by saying when we filed this detailed site plan application, we had two owners that we disclosed on the application form. One was Green Branch Limited Liability Company, and the other was GBR Mill Branch Limited Liability Company. That was the correct ownership structure at the time the application was filed. Since that time, and more recently, just towards the end of 2021, Mr. Chesley, who is the sole owner and controlling member, of course, of Green Branch LLC, purchased the interest of the other owner. And consequently, there is a single owner who is the applicant in this case this evening and is processing this application. That is Green Branch LLC. And Mr. Chesley, W.F. Chesley, is here this evening in the audience. He has extensive experience in development and construction of real estate projects and, of course, sale of real estate in Prince George's County. Other members of the team who are here this evening, we have Ms. Kim Morgan of Land Tech, our civil engineer, Ms. Jackie Chandler of Traffic Concepts, our transportation engineer, Mr. Russell Baker, who is a trusted ally of Mr. Chesley and works on these projects with him. They're all with us tonight. As we look at the project, and to go directly and to answer a question that was raised relative to the amount of commercial development which is being proposed, I think roughly this is a 70-acre parcel of land. Only about 20% of the land area of the overall project is proposed to be allocated to commercial development. And of that, in addition to normal retail commercial uses, we have a hotel, which we're proposing for this project. So I think it's somewhere in the range of 77 or so thousand square feet of commercial development. So it's a small percentage of the land area. It's not a great amount of square footage, and so we're hopeful that it's not an overdevelopment from a commercial standpoint. And of course, there is somewhat of a challenge right now for commercial retail development as well. So we do have potential commercial users who are in negotiation with Mr. Chesley right now, but nothing that we are able to disclose. new commercial development will require their own detailed site plan that will be coming in before you on as we have those moving forward. So what we have tonight is just the 408 multifamily residential units and the 190 residential townhouse units. And these are the exact numbers of units that were approved with the preliminary subdivision plan that the planning board approved in March of 2021. And let me say that the property being zoned CSC normally would not accommodate multifamily residential and residential townhouse development, but it is authorized on this property pursuant to a zoning text amendment CB 45 of 2019 adopted by the county council. And really that bill was done in anticipation of the countywide comprehensive rezoning, because the new zoning ordinance was adopted pursuant to CB 13 of 2018. It was adopted in October of 2018. So it was recommending that this property be placed in the CGO, Commercial General Office Zone. That zone permits, as a matter of right, multifamily residential development at 48 units to the acre and residential townhouse development at 20 units to the acre. Our proposed densities are substantially less than those permitted densities in that zone. The council knew that this was coming, and so basically facilitated development to move along at a quicker pace by adopting the text amendment CB 45 of 2019. And so that is what brought us here before you sort of on an expedited track, because obviously the new ordinance will not become effective until April 1st. So we were able to get our preliminary subdivision plan approved, and now we're here with our detailed site plan. Let me say that I want to talk a little bit about some of the infrastructure that we are putting in place for this project. And if I could use this highlighter here. So we have extensive frontage along US 301 on our western property boundary, and of course extensive frontage on Mill Branch Road along our southern property boundary. And so what we are doing is we are adding an additional through lane on US 301 that starts before Mill Branch Road and runs all the way up to where we intersect with the Rips property. That is a major transportation improvement that is accommodating not just our traffic, but is improving transportation on 301 generally. We're also adding a third left turn lane at 197 onto northbound 301. And then we're taking Mill Branch Road, which is currently 2 lanes, we're adding 2 additional lanes for travel. And we are also adding bike lanes on Mill Branch Road. We are proposing, and we have worked with the State Highway Administration on having a right-in, right-out access point into our project. And as we come down Mill Branch Road, we are going to construct a traffic circle and then build a private road, which is called Ridgely Avenue, coming generally in a sort of northeast direction. Something that is quite significant about the road improvements. The road improvements are in the magnitude of $13 million that this project is going to build. And when we went through the subdivision process, we proffered that we would consider as part of our traffic study all the trips to be generated by Green Branch Regional Park. We were given a number for that. It amounted, and it ended up being 22% of all of our traffic, almost a quarter of our traffic in our report that we had to account for is attributable to the Green Branch Regional Park. And that had a corresponding effect on the amount of road improvements that we had to make. So we were happy to do that. Mr. Chesley was happy to do that because he's very excited about prospect of the Green Branch Regional Park, and it looks like that's really getting some traction. It's getting ready to move. The other thing that we're doing is we are providing Ridgely Avenue as an access roadway into the Green Branch Regional Park. So all the traffic from Green Branch Regional Park is going to come out Ridgely Avenue, hit the circle, and then come out either Mill Branch Road to 301 or go in a southeast direction on Mill Branch Road. And of course, people who have been in the regional park will also have access to the commercial retail offerings that will ultimately be constructed as part of Mill Branch Crossing. So I think those are some significant beneficial facts that we would like you to be aware of in terms of things that are going to benefit not just this project, but the community in general. So in terms of this particular development at this time, the areas that you see in tan on our illustrative plan here, those will be commercial areas. Again, nothing is ready to move forward yet, but things are getting quite close, and we'll be coming back in front of you when we have detailed site plans for that portion of the development. Basically, what we're doing here is when you come down Mill Branch Road, come around the traffic circle and come down Ridgely Road, we have a spine road that will run through the project. That will be called Lola Lane and will terminate at a traffic circle once again, which of course is where we receive traffic from 301 on the right in, right out, that will be constructed. So the first portion that you see here immediately to the east of Lola Lane is the multifamily component. And that will consist of a total of 6 buildings. They're L-shaped. Each building is slightly in excess of 89,000 square feet. And they're sort of oriented around an interior surface parking area. Something which is significant, however, is that each and every multifamily building will also incorporate an underground parking garage, which of course is a major capital commitment. The multifamily component is now under contract. There's a contract purchaser. The contract is hard. His architecture is what you see before you and what we're going to show you in just a second. I also want to note that in the upper left corner of the multifamily component, we have the clubhouse. The clubhouse is, quite frankly, extraordinarily large. It's 10,440 square feet. Very, very large for a project of this nature. The buildings themselves will be 4 stories, served by elevators. And again, with the underground parking garage beneath each and every building, access to the garage will be secured through a keypad entry. Metal doors will raise, and we'll show you those when we get to the elevations. The clubhouse, with the 10,440 square feet of gross floor area, again, quite large. It's going to incorporate a fitness center, which will, have cardio facilities, treadmills, ellipticals, and of course weights, free weights, and machines. There will be a yoga studio inside the clubhouse, a community room, office space, computer space for folks to come in and transact whatever computer business they would like, a library, a conference room, and then a large outdoor pool. The pool is quite interesting because while it's very large in its area, it's not a traditional rectangular pool. It sort of has a free-form shape. And we really feel like these amenities are going to create an atmosphere of relaxation and enjoyment for the residents. If we could move into the architecture for the multifamily. So this is the architecture for the typical multifamily building. And if you look at the top right elevation, you will see an entrance. The entrance is via a covered arched canopy, which has a standing seam metal roof. there are brick piers that support the canopy, and then you would walk into the building. You see on the elevation to the bottom, another duplicated arched entry system for access into the building. The overall, and this will carry through with the townhouses as well, the overall architectural presentation of the project is a traditional architectural style. Gables are featured on the roof lines, 30-year asphalt shingles for the roofing material, and an interesting pattern of red brick on all elevations, and but not total red brick. There will be cement horizontal siding, some areas of ephes, and of course substantial glazing, which you see presented in each of the elevations before you. The areas, if I might, yeah. So here, where you see what looks to be something which is subterranean, and then again in the upper left elevation, that is the access door into the underground garage, which again is controlled with a security keypad. So we think that these, first of all, we know that the overall commitment to quality is substantial. Building materials are substantial. We create articulation in the facade treatments by avoiding a monotonous flat plane and by bringing projections of the building in and out, once again, to add to the overall architectural interest. Each and every building will incorporate 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units. So we have that mix in every building. The 3-bedroom units are, quite frankly, minimal. But nonetheless, the developer, the builder of the multifamily wanted to provide some 3-bedroom units. But certainly 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units really are the overwhelming majority. And then I'd like to go to the clubhouse architecture if I could. While we're here, there we go, right? There we go. So as you can see, the clubhouse really sort of replicates and picks up on the same type of architectural treatments as the multifamily buildings themselves. Red brick, substantial glazing, again the same 30-year asphalt shingle roof, the incorporation of different roof angles and treatments. Obviously some are the straight A-frame, some have added areas onto the ends. We have hip roof treatments as well, and then of course chimneys. So a very attractive building for the clubhouse, and again, incredibly large. And if you look in the upper left-hand corner, so here you will see the footprint of the clubhouse building itself, and then you see the free-form pool out in the front with the lounge chair areas surrounding it. Just quite a nice clubhouse effect. I'd like to turn now, if I could, back to the illustrative plan. Great. So we had the multifamily buildings that we just gone through. So now if you look in the, what I would call an inverted pyramid area, and then off to the north as well, those are all of the residential townhouse units, 190 of the residential townhouse units. And as you can see, what we did was when you come down Ridgely Avenue, the first entrance that you take a left on is, of course, Lola Lane, the spine road through the project itself. As you come down, there is a second access point directly into the townhomes right here. All the internal roads in the townhomes are private, as is normally the case. will be constructed by the developer or builder, and then thereafter maintained by a homeowners association, which is typical for residential townhomes that are sold fee simple market rate. The interesting concept for these townhomes is that the lots themselves are quite large. So you'll often see 18-foot wide lots in the middle of a stick of townhomes with possibly 20-foot wide lots on the end. All of the townhouse lots are either 20 feet in width, 22 feet in width, or 24 feet in width, which is quite a large townhouse lot. The builders, we have submitted architecture from 5 national and well-known builders with established footings in Prince George's County. So we have Stanley Martin, we have NVR, D.R. Horton, Lennar, and Dan Ryan. Now, we don't necessarily expect that all 5 of these builders will be building here. It may just be 1, or it may be 2, but we have submitted the architecture from all 5 as Mr. Chesley runs through the process of selecting an ultimate developer for the townhouses, and of course enters into a contract with that builder. Again, I'd like to just take you quickly through the architecture of the residential townhouse units. And so this is, again, you're going to see just a repetitive style in terms of its traditional lines. But you'll see the same thing. These are, oh, by the way, we have, out of 190 units, somewhere between 80 and 90 are rear loaded. And we really like the look that allows you to create along the street line. So this is an NBR rear loaded unit. So when you're driving down the street, all you see is the front door. You see a mix of building materials being installed on these, some brick, some stone, horizontal siding, again, lots of windows, gable treatments, steep roof pitches. I think the pitch on these roofs is 612. And again, the 30-year shingle treatment for the roofs themselves. So if you could just move on, Kim. This is what the rear of the rear-loaded units looks like. Balconies, a garage door. That is a 2-car garage with 2 outdoor parking spaces on the pad, for a total of four spaces per unit. And once again, a lot of windows. We can move on. This is the side treatment for the MBR units. Now we're moving into the Stanley Martin product. Once again, a very steep roof, dormers, gable treatments, interesting facade treatments, lots of windows. You can see the projections that come in and out. The doors will accommodate security camera features, and a mix of masonry and horizontal siding treatments. And again, with sort of earth tone colors on the Stanley Martin models. These are side treatments for the Stanley Martin product. Certainly high visibility units are going to have substantially more enhancements, window treatments, roof lines, and so forth. More of the Stanley Martin. Again, these are front-loaded units, and so you can see the garage door. And the final, I think this is the final Stanley Martin elevation. Again, side treatments. You can see deck treatments that go out from the rear of the units. And here's the Lennar product. Again, very similar in terms of the traditional architectural design, a mix of masonry and siding, steep roofs, gable treatments, dormers, bay windows, and at the very top you're seeing front-loaded units, and right beneath it, that stick, the elevation stick right beneath the top line is, of course, rear-loaded units. And here are Dan Ryan homes. continuing with the traditional style. Combination here of really stone treatments with sidings and gray and white color treatments, combinations in and out. There we go. This is an actual photograph of a Dan Ryan community, and again, you see, you know, in a life color photograph exactly what these units would look like. So that is the townhouse architecture. I want to talk a little bit about the townhouse amenities, because in both the multifamily and in the townhouse product, you know, when you typically come in with a residential product, the first thing that Park and Planning looks at is, are we going to have a mandatory parkland dedication? Given our proximity abutting the Green Branch Regional Park, Park and Planning was not interested in mandatory dedication for these units, so instead it was private. So you have the major recreational component, the amenities for the multifamily, and now you have for the townhouses. So for the townhomes, we have a tot lot for age up to 5. It's generous in its size. It is characterized by a gazebo and active play equipment that would be safe for younger children. We have a preteen lot, which goes from the ages of 5 to 12, again, generously sized, including a gazebo, and once again, active play equipment that is age appropriate for that age group. But I think something that Mr. Chesley wanted to do, and which I think is most exciting in terms of the amenity for this project, if you could bring the drawing up, there we go. Okay, so why don't we go back and show the council members where the stormwater pond fits into the overall. If you go back to the illustrative one time, Kim. There we go. Okay, so here is the stormwater pond over in the northeast corner of the site. We have environmentally sensitive area beyond there, and we have a path connection from the townhouse community into the stormwater area. So what Mr. Chesley chose to do to provide for private recreational facilities, and of course you have to, Park and Planning comes up with a number that you have to achieve in terms of the amenities that you're going to offer. So now if you could go back to the blow up of the stormwater pond. There we go. So as you can see, what he is going to do here is he has agreed to install a 10-foot wide asphalt paved trail around the perimeter of the stormwater pond. He is going to stage around the asphalt trail gazebos, benches, picnic tables, and outdoor grilling areas. So the combination of this is it's going to create, we think, a highly sought after amenity. It's going to be an area where folks can exercise, they can recreate, and they can just simply socialize. And so this is, I think, somewhat of a new concept, but Mr. Chesley was very interested in trying to do something special here. We'll have some areas of interpretive signage where folks can learn about the history of the property, and it's just, I think it's going to be a very, very successful and well-used amenity for the project. So I think that's pretty much it. I don't want to forget one thing. When we came through on the preliminary subdivision plan, we had a lot of questions, a lot of requests for a pedestrian crossing of 301 at Mill Branch Road. We expressed our safety concerns about that. It was never an issue of the cost of the crossing. We're making $13 million in road improvements. You know, that was not that big of an issue at that point. What we were concerned about is that there's about a 5 to 6 foot grade separation in the median. And, you know, you're familiar with driving down there and making that left-hand turn on the Mill Branch Road. You're actually coming up a slope to make that turn. We were concerned about safety of putting pedestrians in that situation, but at the end of the day, that's what everyone wanted. You know, there was a condition placed upon our approval. The State Highway Administration wanted it, and so we are doing it. So I wanted to make sure I brought that to everyone's attention. And what we've actually had to do to accommodate safety in the median is when you cross, say, coming from Mill Branch Crossing to the median, to accommodate for the grade separation, we're actually going to have a paved switchback. So you'll hit the median, turn north, go down an incline, make a U-turn, come back to the south, and sort of get you down that grade separation safely. And then cross again when the light provides a safe crossing. So that is something pretty substantial. We wanted to make sure everyone knew that we were doing that. State Highway Administration has approved it. They're also suggesting that maybe we put some steps where the crossback is so that people who are not challenged who are able to take the stairs can do that. So that's it. I think, let me just say that I really appreciate working with Mr. Minor. He's been very thorough in his approach. We appreciate his recommendation for approval, as we appreciate the Advisory Planning Board's recommendation of approval. As to the conditions, obviously we have a departure that we're asking for the size of parking spaces, not everywhere, but some surface parking spaces, mostly at the multifamily component. I'm sure that'll come right after this. It'll be a lot quicker than this has been. So we know that's a condition. In terms of the tree conservation areas that we have to acquire, we have no objection to the condition as proposed by your staff. The only caveat we would like to raise is that, you know, we got to make sure it's available, you know, because if you have to establish a tree bank, that can take months and months and months, and we don't want to get held up. So if it's available and it's competitively priced, we're fine with doing that. The one item that causes us concern, and it's not the concept of the workforce housing. It's whether it will work in this multifamily component. And let me just say that I don't know the exact date that we found out about this request, but I believe, Mr. Minor, you can please step in and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to misstate, but I think it was when we got the staff report a day before the February 2nd stakeholders meeting. And there was the recommendation for the 10% workforce units in the multifamily. Now, if we had received that request, say when we came in and filed the preliminary subdivision plan and we had some time to work with it, it would have been easier for us to accept. Now we have a contract purchaser. He has developed his architecture. He has put the investment into subterranean parking structure, a massive clubhouse. When you build that type of unit, the rent structure has to accommodate the service on the debt. And we have a question as to whether or not the workforce housing we're going to be able to accommodate that and service the debt on the property. The other problem that we have with it is that even to this day, we don't know how it's going to work. We don't know, are we going to be expected to keep 10% of the units vacant in the multifamily? That's 40 units. Are we going to have to keep those vacant if we don't have somebody who wants to rent those? Who is going to create the workforce pool? That certainly would not be us. I think that would be the city's responsibility to determine who qualifies for workforce housing. We certainly couldn't do that. But then, what is the rent structure going to be? Because you cannot have one rate across the board. Because, for instance, there may be some multifamily projects where market rate for that project is, say, $1,600 a month for a one-bedroom unit because it's not amenitized. You may have another where the monthly rental for that for a one-bedroom unit could be $1,900. And so we don't see, and we don't understand from the information we've been given thus far how the formula is going to work to establish what a monthly rent would be for a workforce unit. So those are the concerns that we have about it. We have no concern with the concept. We understand it. It's laudable. And, you know, but it's, you know, it's one thing. I know the Sears conversion over at the town center came in. They came in for the very first step in their process. And this issue was posited to them. And they said, let's look at it later in our approval process. So they're coming in at the beginning when they haven't done anything, and they can work with it, and their overall development plan and scheme can accommodate perhaps those units. We find out about it when we're done with our detailed site plan planning. I mean, our architecture is complete, it's in, and then this month we find out about the request for the workforce unit. So it's a little difficult for us. We're certainly happy to continue to talk with the city about this, but it's just unfortunate that I can't stand here tonight on behalf of Mr. Chesley and say, you know, we will willingly accept that condition. I mean, obviously, you know, you can put any condition on us you wish, but, you know, I wish we could say we could fully embrace it, but we have some challenges with it at the moment, so I just can't say that tonight. But in any event, I appreciate your patience and listening to me. I hope I haven't been too long-winded, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. What I will do is I will open the public hearing at this time. Are there any comments? Madam City Clerk?
No, Mayor, there's no one signed for this public hearing this evening.
Okay, so I will declare this public hearing closed. I'll now turn over to my council members for any questions they may have at this time.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a couple.
Yes, Councilman Staff, please go right ahead.
So my first question is for city personnel. In the past, when we have had an imposition of a requirement on a developer, and this isn't a hypothetical, in this case we're talking about the 10% workforce housing requirement, late in the process, right? What have we done before? Have we accommodated that? Have we recognized that, well, we didn't, you know, this wasn't contemplated early on in the process? You know, how have we addressed that?
Well, Councilman Esteve, I can't think of an instance where that has happened. In this case, I did want to mention that your policy was adopted in the development review guidelines in March after you had seen the preliminary plan in January. So we didn't have your policy at that time. So staff just felt that this was the only and last opportunity with respect to the residential portion of Mill Branch Crossing that we could bring it up. And so we try to let Mr. Gibbs know about it. We had a meeting prior to the advisory planning board meeting a week or so before that. I had mentioned it to them then. And then when the report came out about a week before the February 8th meeting, that was for the first time it was put in writing. And so they've had between then and now to kind of analyze the feasibility or the potential or speak to the experts or try to get their questions answered. So I don't have a direct answer to what we did in other instances, but I just wanted to provide that additional background for this case.
Okay, so the policy was adopted after we saw the preliminary plan of subdivision.
Yes.
There was a little bit of time between then and now, but I appreciate that. I don't know if the applicant has any further thoughts on that exchange, or...
No, I mean, I think Mr. Minor's recollection of the dates is probably even a little bit better than mine, but I mean, obviously, we're here today, it's February 22nd.
Sure.
And we're hearing about this somewhere around February 1st, somewhere in that time frame. And it's you know, the problem is that we developed all of our architecture. We're committed to go with the amenities that we have for the multifamily, and that was done months before February 1st. And so we can't backtrack on it now. We can't cut back on the amenities. And the problem is that this entire multifamily building complex was designed as a market rate unit. And so it's just a little tough at this particular time. And we just, you know, there was no way we would really know because, I mean, I'll be totally candid with you. I never read your guidelines, but when I did read them, you know, I looked at it and said, well, you know, it only applies in the Bowie Local Center, and this property is not in the Bowie Local Center. I know you have requested that the master plan broaden your Bowie Local Center to include this property, but as of the work session last week before the council, that was not done. So, you know, I mean, look, I enjoy working with Mr. Minor. He's a great guy. He's very knowledgeable. I don't want to be confrontational about it. It's just we're in a tough spot here, and my client just tonight, as we sit here, just couldn't willingly accept this. So I apologize.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. Actually, and I apologize, my next couple questions are for the applicant, so I'll direct them to you. In the design itself, I do have a couple questions. So I noticed that you described in detail the underground parking situation for the multifamily dwellings. How many spaces does the underground parking include? And does that cover all the parking necessary for the multifamily dwelling units?
No, it's just one level beneath each building. I think it's 52 spaces in each building.
Okay, so
that are subterranean, and then the rest is surface parking.
Gotcha, okay. Because there's a very large sea of parking in the center of where those multifamily units are located, and so I was kind of wondering, maybe perhaps we were looking at a potential excess of parking and whether that was the case. It sounds like you're saying that no, that the surface level parking is going to be necessary to accommodate even just the residents of those multifamily units. Okay.
I think that's a fair statement to
make. Okay, understood. My second question related to the design is the location of the clubhouse. I noticed it's kind of off in the far, I guess, I don't know the direction of the map, but in the top left area.
Southwest corner there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Perfect, in the southwest quadrant. What's the walkability like to that clubhouse? Because as I'm trying to picture it, it looks like you might have to go through quite a sea of parking to get there. And I'm just wondering from a you know, pedestrian, you know, and placemaking kind of perspective, whether that's something that you thought that residents might find difficult or inconvenient.
I can tell you that the contract purchaser designed the entire layout of the multifamily. I'd kind of defer to our civil engineer, Kim Morgan. Perhaps she'd be better to answer that question, but there is a series of sidewalks. I mean, you can use sidewalks to get all the way over to the clubhouse. And of course, there will be marked crosswalks at various locations within the parking compound itself. But it is kind of on the periphery, and I understand your comment, but that's where the developer of the multifamily wanted to put it. I don't know, Kim, if you could add anything to that, please.
Sure. Hi, I'm Kim Morgan with Land Tech Corporation. We do have, throughout that parking lot, we do have bioswales in between, in the islands, and we have little bridges that come across the bioswales so that people can cross in those areas. We're going to have a lot of crosswalks. There are walks all around the area. And we are providing, 2% at the front door so that handicap access is good. I did want to add also that in the parking garage, there are 15 bike racks that people can go in and lock their bikes in the bike racks. And then we will have bike racks throughout the area and the site. So did that answer your, and
Okay.
the reason that, I think part of the reason that the developer put that clubhouse at that entrance is that initially, once he opens up, he wants that to be, one of the rooms in that clubhouse will be his rental office, and so
Sure.
he's planning on later on possibly having a gate that would allow people to come in and, sign up for maybe an apartment, but not necessarily be able to just get into the facility, unless he wanted to show them an apartment, so.
Understood. Well, and I'm also sure that, the location has value in terms of giving, prospective residents something really nice to look at when they first approach the property. It seems like it's also placed there with that intention, which I understand. But I do sometimes feel like there's sometimes a little bit of difference between how things are positioned when you're selling a place and versus how things are positioned when people are actually living there and having to walk across a sea of parking to get to a kind of the central community amenity. So I'm a little bit, I guess, interested to know more about why that amenity can't be a little bit more central to the housing and designed in such a way that residents can just walk from their front door along a path to it without having to go through a sea of parking.
I will tell you that we are meeting the 25% tree canopy requirement that Prince George's County has.
Sure.
And we actually are above and beyond that as well. So, and then we did get a comment early on from the city of Bowie when Mr. Stevens was still here, that he wanted a larger percentage of native plants. And so we did go back and make a big change to the landscape plan.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. I think my question's more related specifically to placemaking and just contemplating pedestrian movement a little bit. But I do appreciate your answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions from council members?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Councilman.
This is a question for staff. A quick question on the issue of the 10% workforce housing. There were some questions raised about how such a policy might be deployed. Has there been any work done on staff side, or are there some basic tenets that such a policy would be able to be executed with?
Yes, Councilmember Wolfley. Mr. Jesse Buggs is our grants director, and he's also in charge of the housing function within the city. And Mr. Buggs is in the process of setting up a formal program to qualify residents and individuals that would meet the income guidelines, and then basically be vetted by the city and then put onto a waiting list as these units come online. And the driving force behind that was the agreement that was done with Melford to provide a percentage of affordable units in that development. So as that project moves along, we're going to begin this operation, begin the qualification process, and then create the waiting list. And as the units are built in various projects, then those people will have the opportunity to take leases.
So from the standpoint of this particular developer, though, he's not had that opportunity. I'm a little concerned. First of all, thanks to staff for moving forward with that. I was not aware that progress was being made, so thanks to Jesse when you see him next. But I am a little concerned that we have something that's being added in at the kind of at the last for our folks. As they're going through the process. It sounds like we're a little bit behind the curve on our policy request vis-a-vis their scheduling. How does that fit into the experience you've seen with other developers in terms of timing and being able to adapt to these sorts of proposals?
Well, I'm absolutely sympathetic to the dilemma that Mr. Gibbs has described to you. And as I mentioned earlier, the only time we could have brought it up was now. There is about a month between now and the county planning board date in late March. That project, or the project, will also have to go on to the district council for final approval at some point after March. And I heard Mr. Gibbs say tonight that they just don't know what the impact will be, and that they really need to talk to the contract purchaser. And so really having that conversation will determine whether or not it is doable or not doable. And I don't think they have the answer tonight. They're kind of making the conceptual argument that it may be difficult, but we don't know that. And so I believe there is time by the time it's all said and done, for the developer to make some good faith effort and get the answers that they're looking for. I'm sure Mr. Buggs would be happy to set up a meeting and be a little bit more clear with the subject matter. But I do believe that, given the constraint of time, that there still is a window there of opportunity.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions from council members?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Go right ahead, Councilwoman, please.
To that same point that Councilmember Dufour was making, Wolfley was making, could we, I know for Melford, Mr. Minor, that it's a 5% requirement for workforce housing, correct?
In the Melford project, it was not termed workforce housing, it was termed affordable housing. It was 5%, and it was at a higher income minimum, so it was 80, I believe it was 80 to 120% versus 60 to 80, which is the current council policy. So agreement was done about 3 or 4 years ago. So we've evolved pretty much since then in terms of being a little more specific with what we mean by workforce housing. So the Melford agreement is not really the same thing that we would be recommending now.
Okay. What's the threshold for the affordable housing for Melford? I'm sorry, just wanted to find out the difference.
It's 80 to 120% of the AMI, so it's a lot higher.
Right.
The people would be still making quite a bit of money to get into those units. So even though it's termed affordable, it's not really on the same level as what we're talking about here with the workforce, which is 60 to 80%.
Right, which would constitute about over $72,000. Is that correct? 75,600 to 108 to 100,000. Is that still about the appropriate level?
Yes, I think according to the HUD calculations, which Mr. Buggs provided, at the 60% end, if the median income is $129,000, 60% would be $77,400. So that would be the lowest that you would be going under that qualification.
Right. So currently, the city does not have any workforce housing, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions by any of the council members at this time?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Councilman Gardner,
Yes.
go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question of the applicant, Mr. Gibbs. I did see where you have the different developers or the different builders for the townhomes, and to where you're still looking to select one of those that you propose this evening. But you've included them all in the application in the event you go with one or the other.
That's
okay,
correct.
Logic. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that. Okay, and Councilmember Estev referenced the clubhouse. Will this clubhouse be in use for the entire community, meaning both the towns and the multifamily?
Right. That's a great question, and I regret that I didn't make that clear myself. No.
Mhm.
The answer to that is no. The clubhouse is just for the multifamily component.
Okay.
Nothing else.
Okay. Is there a clubhouse or any sort of amenity for the towns?
No, 190 townhomes just wouldn't.
Yeah, just a little
wouldn't
small.
be able to support that, right?
Okay. My other question is the asphalt that you're building around the stormwater area. What is the actual, do you have an idea how much asphalt or how the mileage or so?
I'm going to defer to Ms. Morgan on that.
Yes, okay. I like the idea that you have a bike trail and that it's walkable and that you've included the biking, because that's really what I was looking at, the enclosed community, a livable, walkable community. But I'm sorry, but
Well, around the stormwater management pond, there'll be a lower maintenance bench that will allow, it's a private facility, so it will be maintained by the HOA or whatever entity is set up. And then around the top of the pond will be a 10-foot wide asphalt path. I don't know exactly how long that is, but it's significant amount of path. And then we have another path that comes in from the townhouse development where they can get around the gate, because there would be a gate so that there won't be any vehicles be allowed to go back in that area. And then the historic or the archaeological artifacts that were removed recently will be placed in the gazebo that'll be overlooking the pond in a, some sort of a box or a facility that describes.
what sort of historical artifacts?
I don't know.
Okay. I don't know. Does
I
it?
have to defer to our archaeologist.
Okay. Council Member Harrison and myself were saying it looks to be a very nice project, and it really does. I have to say that. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Thank you, man.
If I could,
I have a question. Oh, yes.
I was just going to say, on the, again, on the workforce housing issue, we don't know, just responding to Councilmember Harrison's comment, because, see, the Melford, I've looked at the Melford agreement. Mr. Meinhardt was kind enough to give it to me, and yeah, it's not workforce.
It's not the same. Yeah.
Affordable, and it's at a higher threshold, which allows a higher rent structure. And it is at 5%, not 10%. And we don't know what's going to happen with the Bowie Town Center Sears renovation that's going to come through. But again, not to try to be argumentative, because I'm not. But it's just a little difficult when there's really no program yet in place by the city. And for instance, one of the really concerning things we have is that if we're going to allocate 40 units to workforce housing, what happens if there aren't 40 people to rent those 40 units when they come online? Do we have to hold those out? Do we rent them, and when they become vacant, they again might be used at that point in time? And we agree that the city can create the workforce pool through their 60 to 80% median income structure. But then again, what does the rent become? We don't know what that is.
I wanted to say, with my colleagues here, there's been some concern about the workforce housing and then the timing of which you were made aware of such. And it does concern me. It is a bit of a concern. We need to really take a look at that. Really,
and I'm sorry to chime in.
No.
And look, it's not a motivation thing. I applaud Mr. Leonard, but
okay.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Gibson. I must say that I am concerned about that portion of it, the workforce housing, and to where there's, pardon me, this is a question for staff. Mr. Minor? I know that you mentioned to Councilmember Harrison to where Mr. Buggs is working and to developing a program, and he's identified. How does that look? Because I would like to know how it would look. I would like to have an idea how we would ask the applicant to, do we ask them to hold 40 units? Do we ask them to, that is a bit concerning. How do we, I don't even know how to address that, because.
Well, Councilman Gardner, this question did come up when we developed the Melford agreement about 4 years ago, and I did share that agreement with Mr. Gibbs. There were provisions in the agreement that spoke to what would happen if the units weren't able to be leased. You know, there's a certain time period, and the time period runs, and then there's a sort of a payback provision where the unit could then be claimed back as a market rate unit with the fee paid to the fund, the housing fund. So there's a provision, you know, we worked out the provisions of that eventuality if it were to happen in the Melford project. So I would envision that in a case like this, if Mr. Chesley was willing to work with the city and cooperate with us, that we could fashion an agreement that would deal with that possibility to make sure that everything was written up so that you'd have that assurance of what would happen.
Thank you, Mr. Minor. I'm going to, Councilmember Harrison has a comment or two. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are you finished, Councilman?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember
Okay,
Harrison. No problem.
I believe you said Councilmember Harrison has a question.
Yes, I read through the, in my reading, and of course, I think you mentioned, Mr. Minor, that the Bowie Advisory Planning Board shared that they thought that it could be a goal and not set it as a minimum. And that would be a great opportunity for us to be able to put something together if we can at least include it as a goal in your planning efforts instead of making it a minimum requirement. That would give them the opportunity to us to put something together and for you all to review it and see if that is something that, you know, you could possibly integrate into your plan. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Yes, go right ahead, Councilman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I could live with the goal too, Councilmember Harrison. I could live with a goal if that could work with city staff as well and our colleagues here.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions or comments at this time from council members? I think I will just make a couple of brief comments, and I pretty much, I think I go along lines with the rest of my colleagues here when we talk about trying to set a goal. It is one of those things we talked about, and I understand that it's been minimal time for them to try and address this issue at this point. And I think that that's in us trying to be fair with developer and where we are, but also knowing that we do have an interest in making sure that there is affordable housing within the city. But understanding we're at a point now where we've gotten down the road on some of these issues and really haven't put a plan together yet to really implement. So I understand where staff is coming from. I also understand where developers coming from. And it puts us in a somewhat precarious situation of, you know, did we put the cart before the horse? But we're working on that. So having said that, I will again open it up to any questions that any of my colleagues may have or any last comments.
I do have one final comment, Mr. Mayor. I've been wrestling with the 10% workforce housing issue and just purely sharing my perspective. I would prefer to see the 10% workforce housing, but I do recognize the position the applicant is in. So I'm not going to make that a part of my request. If my colleagues would like to include it, that's fine, but I'm not going to prioritize that. Our biggest challenge with housing affordability right now is just the country's not building any. This is a step towards more housing in an area that needs it. And so, you know, that I think at least serves some purpose, even without the 10% workforce housing requirement.
Thank you, Councilman. At this time, if there are no other comments, I open the floor because we can take action at this time on the detailed site plan. Is there, for Mill Branch Crossing, is there a motion at this time?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I move for approval of detailed site plan DSP 20003 Mill Branch Crossing with the condition that they include a goal of 10% workforce housing.
And I'd like to second that, Mr. Mayor.
It's been moved and properly second that we accept the site plan with a goal of 10% workforce housing. Any discussion at this time? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
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 Opposed, same favor.
Nay.
Madam City Clerk, the vote.
Mayor, we have a vote of 5-1, and with the motion passing.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We will now be moving on to the Police Department update. And I'll turn it over to staff.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council.
Good evening, Chief. How are you?
I am just peachy, sir. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
So we've done things a little different this year, or this time. We've put the packet online as well, so the same information that I'll be going through with you and the council is available to any residents that might still be awake at 10:42. So we're trying to be a little more transparent with the information that we're providing so that everybody's on the same page and tracking us.
Thank you, Chief.
So I'm going to try to stay on a couple things here outside the packet that I want to touch on. Of course, our authorized strength is 67 still. We have 64 with 3 openings and a couple of folks in non-duty statuses for various reasons. We do have our outreach efforts. Our next Citizens Academy starts May 3rd. The information is online. I encourage people to sign up. We did extend it to a 13-week academy because we were just trying to cram too much stuff into the previous time. So we want to be able to make sure we spend time and cover things thoroughly. So it is a 13-week now, but well worth those 13 weeks. We have our drug take back in April, on April 30th. And again, we continue our coffee with the cop and the chief chats on a monthly basis. We're still continuing to get our impact program off the ground. Impact, of course, being information matters, police and community together, creating that two-way communication. We have made some inroads. We have some great citizens that have volunteered to be part of it, and we continue to try to move that forward. Our crime trends, of course, we have our theft from auto, our ever-present theft from autos. We were running a few strategies, including using our license plate readers and some targeted patrols, but we did have to kind of waylay that for a little bit because of shortages in patrol staffing from injury, COVID, some staff shortages that we just hopefully made a dent in with the 3 officers that we put out tonight. So the community services folks have been shadowing patrol and doing a lot of patrol duties. So hopefully we will get back to some more targeted enforcement on the theft from autos issue. I'm going to save the increase in gun activity until I get through the other stuff because I want to spend a little bit of time on that. I'll give you a speed camera update. You, of course, remember that we were allowed to begin speed cameras in residential areas and that we were looking at our current company of Conduit. They put a proposal out that was not exactly to our liking on the fiscal responsibility side. So we are trying to get that down, but at the same time, we want to make sure we play within the guidelines of the contracts, and the contracts specifically mention school enforcement, not so much residential. So I think our best option, and I want to bring this out to you, is to place an RFP and the current conduit contract ends March of '23. So we begin the RFP process and just bid the whole thing back out again, so we have an integrated system not only for the school zones but for the residential. What I would like to try to avoid is having a speed camera company for the residential and a different speed camera company for the school areas. Then the resident never knows, we have to figure out what database they're in, and it just gets a little confusing. Of course, I'm looking for some feedback and direction on that from council. I know you guys have been kind of eager to get that force multiplier out there with speed cameras in the residential area. But my task so far is to try to do it in a fiscally responsible manner. What I don't want to do is encumber cost into a contract with flat fees that are not conducive to getting those fees back by the number of citations. Especially as we move through a residential areas where we're placing the cameras in different spots all the time. I really don't want to put us in a situation where we're actually losing money on the investment. And I know it's not about the revenue, it's about slowing people down, but we also don't want to take a huge financial hit on it as well. Those are my opinions, at least. I'd be welcome to hear what you think once I kind of get through some of the other stuff. But we would really want to make sure we go about this smartly and looking at the long-term gains and pros and cons of it. I also want to touch on House Bill 670, which was the police reform bill that was passed last session that is due to take effect in July. That is the creation, the part that I'm going to talk about is the creation of the charging committees and the citizen charging committees and the citizen accountability boards. What it does is it removes the LEOBR from existence and pushes disciplinary processes for citizen-driven complaints into the hands of a citizen charging committee, and then they determine if a violation has occurred. We would actually do the investigation as we usually do, turn it over to the citizen charging committee, and they would determine if a violation has occurred, and then using a state-created disciplinary matrix, they would determine the punishment. Of course, you would still have the due process for the administrative hearing boards if that officer declines to accept the punishment. I bring this up because the county is currently trying to put their boards together. There is a current bill, I think it's House Bill 1134, that is looking to create the option of a municipality opting in for their own, to create their own charging committee, to create their own accountability board. What I can say with a little bit of happiness is that we don't have to tackle these issues right away. We have a little bit of time to let the dust settle and see how it works, because one of the components of HB 670 was that if you have a current FOP contract that handles discipline, you cannot circumvent that. You have to let that contract run out. So our current contract runs out on June of 2024. So HB 670, that component of it won't affect us until June of 2024. And I say that only as a good thing, because that gives the time for this other process to kind of get its feet together, because I am anticipating a lot of judicial challenges, especially surrounding county boards having disciplinary power over a sovereign municipal employee. So there's some things that are probably going to have to be worked out and some things that have to be ironed out. But I do want to keep you informed of that, because the MML is looking at 1134 and maybe asking for guidance or positions. So I want you guys to have an understanding of the groundwork and what's happening. Lastly, before I get to the packet, I want to address the flyers that came out on Saturday. We got a call for some flyers that had some anti-COVID or COVID hoax information, and also some anti-Semitic information on it. So we got the call around 10:07. We were in the area about 5 minutes later, and we spent about an hour cleaning that section of the C section up and getting all the flyers that we could find out of people's driveways. That began to get shared by some folks on social media next door, and someone had posited the possibility that officers were putting the flyers out, based upon just seeing them with flyers in hand and everything else. And I won't go much deeper into that. So, of course, we want to be as completely transparent as possible. So we reviewed the body cam footage and saw that the officers were indeed picking them up and getting them out of the area. The thing that I want to really cover here is, if you look at some of the other discussions on the Nextdoor site and some of the dialogues, it really reaffirms that kind of information, if you can call it information, but those kind of pamphlets have no place, and that kind of thinking has no place in our community. And we really saw the response from the outrage from the citizens that had the unfortunate happenstance of seeing that information. Just that we are a very diverse community, we are a very accepting community, and that kind of vile propaganda has no place in Bowie. So we continue to gather information. Unfortunately, that does still fall under free speech. So there have no real technical criminal violations yet. We do continue to gather intelligence in the happenstance that it does rise to a criminal matter later, that we're not starting from scratch. I was reading some of the news tonight, and Fairfax had the same thing happen, and I believe they found it in some areas of DC. So it is unfortunately not just us. But I did want to emphasize that that has no place in our community, and I was very happy with a lot of the social media responses just denouncing those acts. So I want to jump into some of the increased gun activity that we've seen. And unfortunately, it's something that everyone is seeing nationwide, and it's affecting us as well. So far in 2021, we had 51 gun-related incidents. That is up by 20 out of 2020. And 2021, 51, the number of 51 is not good. But I hate to say that we're on a faster pace for 2022. Just to kind of break down what happened in 2021, we recovered 30 guns off the street. And when we asked people to call us, and we asked people to report things, and we asked people to report suspicious activities, that's the reason. I can tell you that at least five of the guns that were recovered in 2021 were from people that were calling us about a suspicious vehicle and just hanging out in the back of the lot or hanging out in their neighborhood. And most likely, a lot of times, they were back there smoking marijuana. And I don't care what your opinion is on marijuana. I don't care, what you think it should be legalized. That doesn't matter to me at this point. The point is, oftentimes when you're finding folks that are just parked in, in a shady area, or they're in the back of a townhouse community or anywhere else, we're finding guns while they're associated with them smoking the marijuana. So I'm not drawing a correlation between smoking marijuana and firearms, but I am saying that when we're finding people in those situations, in those circumstances, we are finding a lot of guns. We just found 5 based upon calls from citizens, and then our SAT team found another 8 out of those same situations that we're working on citizens' complaints in the area. So there is a correlation that we have to pay attention to. We talk about a lot of those ghost guns that they talk about. I can say that out of those 30 that we recovered 17 ghost guns. Ghost guns are guns that do not have the serial numbers. They've been bought piecemeal and put together. So we are seeing them in the city. As I said before, 2021 was not a good year for recovering guns, and I hate to say that we're off to a rough start in 2022. 2022, we've had 8 shooting incidents, which is very, very unusual for us. And it's, I'm gonna try not to get on a soapbox, but it's from access of guns. It's from, if I have to speculate, it's from the pandemic. It's, we see a lot of people that are just angry about whatever you want to, whatever you want to guess at, whether it's mask, whether it's restrictions, whether it's just, confinement, change of routine. We've got a lot of people struggling with a lot of emotions and how to deal with things. And you add those in, and you get some violence. Even we started with January 1st with the flare gun incident, where there was a matter of just road rage. And followed a guy into the Bowie Town Center and shot him in the face with a flare gun. And I will say that Detective Howard did an outstanding job, tracking leads down and identifying a suspect. And it just happens that Officer Cam was on the Marshal's task force, so he was able to get the task force folks to stake the area out and pick the guy up. So it was a lot of things falling together and happening, as a team. But again, we've had eight different things. Not everyone has been shot. Sometimes it's just hole in a house. But again, that could end up very tragically. So we are trying to do our best to make the stops. We did get 8 guns in 2021 out of traffic stops. So, it's important that, not only we enforce traffic laws, but we also make sure that we're doing our due diligence on those traffic stops. And oftentimes when, people wonder why we approach cars the way we do, we pulled 8 guns out of traffic stops, and we need to make sure that the officers are doing things in a safe and tactically sound way. So, again, that's just education on compliance and making sure everybody's on the same sheet of music when an officer comes up to a vehicle. So, kind of diving into the packet just a little bit, I'm just trying to hit the highlights. If we go to our crime and citation statistics, we've looked decent in a lot of categories. Commercial burglaries down by 57%, assaults down by 5 for 2021. Again, these are year-end numbers. We had a 25% bump in auto thefts. We had 5% bump in thefts. Surprisingly, we had a 25% bump in photo citations. I guess people weren't driving around for so long they forgot the cameras were there. But so we had a 25% bump in that, and a 2% bump in calls for service. So as people start to come out of the pandemic, they're coming out and about, and we're getting some more calls for service. If we go back to the down to the criminal investigation section, you'll see that you'll see the closure rates and some of the status of 76 cases that are signed, as well as a couple synopsis of some of the cases. Specifically, there was a break and entering of My Eye Doctor. They were able to track through some social media and some other some work cooperating with Howard County, able to close that. Again, I mentioned the flare gun shooting that was closed by Detective Howard. So they're working very hard. Being a detective down, they're really hustling and doing some good work. If we look at our community services team, you look at the nuisance abatement, Corporal Sims has been working on a couple cases with DPI, trying to address party houses and things of that nature, and he's had a lot of good luck with it. We started our family bike rides. We had a couple different family bike rides where everybody met in the back of the lot here. We all went out on a ride together, kids and parents. Really great time. The only thing that I could say negative is that we did have one little girl ride straight into the pond, but she came out like a trooper and had a good time, and actually got a little bit of swag from us for her troubles. So she came out on the plus end. Of course, the old Bowie Festival in September, and again, the drug takebacks that we participate in. The next section I'd like to kind of breeze into is the year-end traffic safety report. You'll notice this is a new addition to the packet, and thank Corporal Saunders for putting together such a detailed analysis of our crashes. And some of the other things, we had 106 crashes and then Route 197 is accounting for about 22% of those. Now this is traffic officer's stats. Notice that it says officer. There's no S after that. This is Corporal Saunders, did 530 traffic stops, 566 citations, 438 warnings, did 37 truck inspections. This is a unit of one that he is just powering through this, and we've got some things in the work for next fiscal year that will increase his ability to gather some of these statistics and gather some of this speed data on our roads. So real happy the way that's going. If we move over to our training, you'll see that the majority of the training encompassed 942 hours. That it's all the different things that we've gone over. That's outside of the 130 hours of firearms training. And then use of force reviews, 26 hours. Anytime there's a use of force, we do look at the body camera. We do review each use of force to make sure that it's appropriate and within guidelines, and also for training opportunities to see if there's ways that we could have done things differently or more efficiently. And that's one of the things that I think we're very, very good at, and that is being very critical on ourselves and making sure that we review our policies, procedures, and what we're doing to make sure that we are being the best that we can possibly be. I'm going to leave it there and take any feedback, questions. I would especially be curious as to direction on the speed cameras.
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to say to you and the entire department, Chief, we thank you all for what you do to keep our community safe and the effort that you put into constantly trying to improve and make sure that we maintain the integrity that our city deserves. And again, I want to commend you and all the staff in the department for what they do. Having said that, I'll open it up to questions from the county council members.
Mr.
Any
Mayor?
questions at this point?
Mr. Mayor?
I
want to be on the county council.
Councilman Wolfie?
Yes, thank you. A couple of things. First of all, thank you for the good info that you presented here. I'd like to start off by saying congratulations on 3 fine new recruits for this year, creeping closer and closer to full complement. So I know the work there is not easy, and more importantly, I appreciate you and your organization maintaining a commitment to quality over quantity. That is, I think, keeps us out of hot water, and it's well worth the well worth the wait. So thank you for your endeavors in those efforts. And if you come up with any more creative schemes on making our positions more well-known or attractive, please do let us know about them.
I'm about to go door to door to tell you the truth. But,
so that's good news there. The first thing I'll start with the most recent comment. First of all, I find very interesting these issues. Very interesting the numbers on the crashes that we have here. This is really rather remarkable. And the one that stands out to me is that 197 corridor statistics that you have here, which represents 22% of all incidents. Prior to getting to that, I was going to ask you about what the dispersion was with regard to county versus state, and but I can see the majority is probably on state roads and county. Is that the case, or are we looking more on, or is there a greater number elsewhere in the city that?
No, that's the good bet, because it's just a matter of speed and access as well. You've got the wider lanes, the 2 lanes, you're going to have more opportunity for crashes on those.
Okay. 197 has been a sore spot for folks for a long time. I do know that living right off of 197, I've often heard the screech and that popping sound, but I don't know that it's all occurring in the 2-lane section. I suspect a lot of it is at the intersection at 450, 197 at 450, and I suspect that there's also some further north as well. Are you aware of where that might be?
No, I don't have that kind of drill down data, but I can make a note and get you it if you like.
Because what I'd like to do, and I know if we can get some numbers on that, it'd be good to be able to go to state highway and start pointing them in some high-risk areas. I know that there are various databases out there where somebody's tracking, but this information might be helpful in moving things along with certain parts of that road, because we've talked for a long time about the need for a median. We've talked about the aesthetic improvements, but they're certainly secondary to the speed issues on that road, and of course we have the forever interminable wait for expanding the 2 lanes to 4 on that one section. The gun numbers are very disappointing. Obviously, the ghost guns, is there any particular place where we're seeing those pop up? Is it a type of crime, or is it just just random all over?
It's kind of spread out. Someone's cut me off. It's kind of spread out. They're off at traffic stops or out of suspicious vehicles. There's nothing that you can really pinpoint and say, this certain activity lends itself to the ghost guns.
Thank you. And working our way back to your earlier comments on the first of all on the issues with the flyers. First of all, thanks to your officers for the quick response on that, and again appreciate the support in cleaning that up. Certainly not acceptable and not what we're looking for. Is there anything that we can be doing to collaborate with the Anti-Defamation League or with other jurisdictions that have seen this same material popping up?
I've exchanged emails with the Anti-Defamation League, just kind of sharing what happened and sharing some information. I've been talking to Rabbi Wiseman as well, making sure those communication lines are open and that he understands that the Jewish faith is supported in our community. And we're just kind of leaving the door open now, and we'll go where we need to, and if we feel that it requires further examination or some kind of event or something, or we will definitely be willing to look into that.
Well, and I'm also interested in if there's any collective action being taken against the perpetrators of this type of behavior. That is to say, whether through ADL or through other jurisdictions. I want to ensure that we're part of that, to whatever extent we're able to do so.
Correct. Sure.
All right. Next question for you is on the boards that you had discussed. How big a burden do you think it would be to have our own board, our own review board? It sounds like it's might be rather onerous.
Well, it really depends. We'd have to look at now you have the option of either just having a citizen review or citizen charging committee or an accountability board. You don't have to do both. So you would have to have a pool of different people for the citizen charging committees that would review investigations. They're supposed to meet at least quarterly. I think for our purposes, the number of complaints that we get, that would be fine. You would probably have to have a city staff assigned to be a liaison with them. And, the issue shouldn't be too daunting for us for that because our numbers are not that big. Same thing with the accountability board. We were in the process, if you remember, of creating our own to begin with. And we were getting kind of far down the road with it when HB 670 passed. So again, that's something we can definitely look at. And again, but with the FOP contract being in place until June of 2024, we have a little bit of time to figure that out. The other piece of that is 1134 may not pass. So if 1134 doesn't pass, then we are still under the county auspices. And I'll say on the record that Mr. Stanton over at the county has been awesome about including municipalities and including everybody at the table as they try to piece theirs together and figure out what's happening. So it's been a very inclusive process. So I think there's nothing that needs to happen at this point. I think I share that just for informational purposes. If you start to get any kind of questions about it from MML or anybody else about what that legislation means and what it would mean to us if it did pass.
Thank you. Most helpful. I do have concerns with relying on the county in a number of for a number of reasons. Their standards may differ from ours for whatever reason. They may be more or less lenient. We don't know. And I don't want us to be in a position where we're outsourcing, if you will, standards for our organization. That having been said, I'm not sure what the level of effort would be for us to do it ourselves. But that's my general inclination. There was discussion about theft from auto. We've continued to see, and see it in the. We continue to see it in the kind of social media environments that there's a fair amount of that going on. Is there anything similar happening elsewhere in neighboring communities that we could partner with to see if there's some some source that we can get back to, if there's any patterns that are going across jurisdictional lines?
Right, and we do exchange information with Division 2, which is down the road, the county station. We do share a lot of information to the point of even if they're doing they're doing some saturation patrol, we make sure that we try to tie that in as well, so that we're not just ping-ponging people across over to them and they're ping-ponging people over to us. So it continues to be a problem. The easiest way we'll continue to say is lock your doors, take your stuff inside. If you lock your doors and don't take your stuff inside, they're going to break the window. If you leave the door unlocked, they're just going to pop open and take whatever they can find. And occasionally they get the open door and a key inside. So, it's I don't mean to victim shame or victim blame, but there are steps that we can do to make this a less hospitable hunting ground for these guys.
Thank you. Then to finish up my commentary on theft from, on the speed cameras, I do think waiting till 2023 is too long a wait. We have legislation in place that grants it, at the state level, and I would like to see us take action sooner. I don't know enough about the details to kind of, line up a path forward, but it may be a situation where we end one contract sooner than originally planned, and again, this gets into procurement stuff, and I should probably keep my nose out of, but there may be some opportunities for accelerating the rebid process. Alternatively, there may be some opportunities for doing some trial efforts that aren't necessarily as expensive, perhaps, maybe with some, some minor deployment under existing contract. Again, I don't know enough about the details, but from kind of a macro perspective, I would suggest that if we could move it sooner rather than later, and if that means adjusting contracts or coming up with some other alternatives, I'd like us to pursue that. I just don't know enough about the details to specify exactly what it is, but I do know that speeding continues to be a major source of complaints for constituents, and while it may not be a huge number from what we see on the reports, it does affect people's feeling of safety and actual safety as well in our neighborhoods. So I think we need to pursue that. So thank you.
Sir, I will continue to dig and look at some creative ways to try to work around it.
Thank you. And,
Thank you,
excuse me.
Councilman.
And
Any
actually,
other
Mr. Mayor, for a quick question, Mark, is there an open mic somewhere that there's a lot of feedback that's going on? All right, we'll work.
Okay, I'm not hearing it on my end, so.
Yeah.
Is it still going on in chambers?
Not at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments or questions from any other council members?
Yes, just a couple of quick comments.
Go ahead,
Thank you.
Councilwoman.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief Neske, and I appreciate all that you've stated tonight, and look forward to bringing all those numbers down for 2022. My question or comments are regarding HB 1184, and I attended the PGCMA meeting, and they mentioned about they're watching this particular bill, and there's a hearing in Judiciary on the 1st of March at 1 o'clock, and certainly we'll be listening in on that. And their concern is that the county may pass down costs to our municipal police departments. Just wanted to find out from you what those costs may be.
Thank you. I was watching the lights for the mics. It's a matter of scale. So the county has I want to say a $3 million budget for this, but again, it's scale. Because they're looking at having enough people to manage the entire county for the county's department and municipalities. So if we look at our numbers, while the number of people on the board won't change, the amount of work that they're doing would be much less. So I can look at those costs and try to piggy them back as far as rates go off the counties. There's going to be some cost associated with it, but I don't have a ballpark figure at this point. The other piece is the administrative side. If you go to a trial board, you have to pay the administrative judge now because there's an administrative judge on there. and they're minimum $100 an hour. That's probably the low. I should have been a judge, right? That's on the low end. So there are some costs that are going to be associated, but like I said, if it passes, it's still optional, and you don't have to create your own. And we have a little bit of time with the FOP contract being a couple more years, that we can look at these things and look at the cost and make a reasonable decision down the road. The only thing that 1134 is going to do is give us the option to do that if we want. And we could even look at it and go, okay, we're going to go with the county's charging board, but we're going to create an accountability board to review investigations for us, much like we started to. So there's a lot of a la carte things we can do. Honestly, I like the idea of local control only because these are the residents that we serve. And they're the ones that we're here for. And they're the ones whose opinion that matters the most. And there's the one whose trust matters the most. So there are some good reasoning, but we really have to do some due diligence, if it passes, to see if that's the option. The other, happy circumstance of this is I don't think 670 is in its final stage. I think what they're going to do is it's probably going to run for a year. There's going to be some things some legal challenges. I think there's going to be some trial and error, and there's going to be some changes long term. And having till June of 2024 gives us a little bit of time to be flexible and let somebody else work the kinks out of it before we're beholden to it.
Would either of these bills affect our tax differential?
No, it doesn't have anything to do with services rendered.
All right, thank you so much. That's all I had. And I'm on board with the speed camera RFP as well. So however we want to move forward with that and you bring forward some more information, that'd be great.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other council members with any comments or questions at this time?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Gardner, please go right ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And being mindful of the hour, I'm going to be very brief. I could not allow our fine police department to leave without some comment from me. Who has the finest police department in the region? We do. I'm very proud of our Bowie officers whenever I'm out. Again, I always say it, always well-dressed, very neat, very courteous, very polite. I speak very highly of them to many of the officers in surrounding cities, and I don't have to actually say anything because it's seen when they come into Bowie. And I mean, just everything, just an impeccable group of men and women. I'm very proud of what you guys do, and I would never say no to most requests you come and bring this way. But thank you again, Chief Nesky, Deputy Chief Preston, thank you all on a fine outfit that you guys have there. Thank you.
Remember you said that in a couple months when we're back with budget, okay?
I will remember that, but I did say most.
and what I will say is that we're coming out of a very tough year and a very tough time, and we've had to put officers on call, patrol officers on call, so that if we're short, they get called back and to work their days off, and they've done everything with their heads held high and with their at least no grumbling that I've heard, probably in the car or in the parking lot, but we've gotten every shift covered. They've done it. They haven't missed a step while working the extra shifts and making sure that the mission keeps moving forward.
Well, we do. We definitely appreciate it. And all our neighbors and residents, friends and family, everyone appreciates Bowie's finest. Thank you again, Chief. Thank you, Deputy Chief.
Thank you, Councilman. Mayor Pro Tem, did you have a comment?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'll be really quick here. Again, Chief Nesky, and to your leadership team, thank you for everything you guys have done for us over these last 2 years. It's been a really difficult time for not residents just here in Bowie, but throughout this county and throughout the state. So again, thanks. We look forward to hearing what you guys say in budget, but especially this weekend, your leadership was much needed, and per usual, you guys stepped up to the plate and delivered. So really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, I promise not to keep us up all night.
Hey, thank you so very much. Go ahead.
I'll just say ditto to everything that my colleagues have said. Chief, Deputy Chief, to you, your command staff, all your officers, thank you. Our first duty as a public body is to keep our residents safe, and that is your job. It is not an easy job, but we recognize you, we appreciate you, and I think you know, and your officers know that you have the support of this community. We'll see you in budget.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? If not, again, thank you, Chief. Thank you, Deputy Chief Preston, and thank you to the entire Bowie Police Department. We appreciate you and do commend you for your service to our community. And congratulations again to the 3 new officers that were sworn in tonight. We appreciate you. All right, moving on. We are now at the point of the mid-year budget. I would like to ask the city staff, since we're at the mid-year budget, are they okay with continuing on? I know it's getting to be a late hour. Or should we move this back to our next meeting? I would put that to staff and to council at this time.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to motion that we move the budget review to our March 7 meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, the motion carries. I know, City Manager, you were ready to go and your team was, but we'll push that off. I will now entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn and move to closed session. To adjourn a closed session under statutory authority, annotated code, state government article, subsection 3-305B7. Consult with counsel to obtain legal advice.
Second.
Moved and properly second. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Motion carries. I would like to say thank you to all of our citizens, to all the participants, to the council. I know it's a late hour, but we appreciate you, and have a good evening. And thank you again, and good night to our citizens, and again, thank you to the staff. We appreciate you.